to item number 2, and we have 2 sets of minutes that we need to approve. One for the 4th and one for the 12th, so we can take that in one motion if you'd like. Call for a motion unless there's any corrections.
Mayor, I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes for the meeting on the 4th and on the 12th.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion and second, all in favor, Wally? Aye.
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 Thank you. Let's move on now to the financial report.
Okay, this is the financial report, for the period ending November 2018. 42% of the year has passed. The first chart I've got here is our cash position. And you can see that, if you look at the chart on the bottom, you can see the green line, is above the red line, which was last year. You can see in those last couple of months it's dropped. Two things, have created that. One is that we're taking the money that we, are moving from the, some of the utility funds to pay for the public works building. So it's moving cash there, plus in the RDA, with some of the projects we're doing there at the home is moving the cash. But we're still about $800,000 above where we were last year. So that's kind of the cash position in each of the funds. And actually, the water impact fee is in a positive because of the growth that we've got. So things are kind of how we anticipated they would be there as far as the cash. The next one is the sales tax. You can see the blue chart, the blue bar for the month of November is just a little bit less, a little bit more than last year. It's tracking that kind of throughout the year. Looking at the month of November, you can see that it's about 13,000 more in 2018 than what in 2017 for the month of December, with an increase, running increase of 113,000 over the year. So it's tracking about where we budgeted the felt it would be. So we hope the economy keeps up and we keep collecting the sales tax there. The next chart will be the transient room tax. We're a little bit behind where we were last year. Last year we were at 28,000, this year at 24. In looking at this, we're missing a few from Hampton Inn. I'm hoping that will catch up. But not anything too much to be worried about. We'll kind of follow that through and see.
Gary, I heard that Motel 6 is lacking a cleaning crew right now, and so they're cleaning as they go.
Clean as they go?
Yeah, like the front desk lady will, so that's gonna affect our taxes.
Yeah,
I was like, well, it helps with our crime, so.
Well, one of the employees was arrested.
Huh?
The employee was arrested.
Oh, that's why it's short.
Sorry.
Okay, inside scoop. Okay. The next one is public safety impact fees, ahead of last year again because of the growth. RAP tax, again, that, tracks the, sales tax, and you can see, we're about 15,000 above where we were last year. You can see the green bars of each month we're above, so that's tracking the sales tax. Energy use tax, a couple of things one thing I need to explain here. You can see that we're considerably ahead of where we were last year. You can see that we have, in the other, we had $42,000 this month in other, and it was a couple of companies here in Woods Cross. Jessica spent considerable time with the tax commission to make sure that that's correct. They verified that that's correct, and the last thing I want to do is pay it back like we've had to before. But we feel confident that that's correct. So right now, we're about $50,000 ahead of where we were last year. So I guess that's something positive for us there.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. Let's just hope the tax commission is correct. Court fines, dropped a little bit in, November, but we're still, about $17,000 ahead of where we were last year. Looking looking at the overall funds, the general fund, we're about, where we need to be, or 42% of the year, we collected 45% of the revenue, 46% of the expenditures, and listed out to the side there why some of them are above, and none of them are really a big concern. The water fund, we're about where we anticipate we should be. It does show a cash decrease of about 5,000, but we paid all of our bonds the first part of the year, so the rest of the part of the year, the cash will now catch up. Water impact is, I noted, is in the positive, again, because of the building. Garbage fund is about where we anticipated it would be. Now, one thing that's a little bit misleading is showing net income of 50,000, and that's because we're lagging 1 month behind in our payments. So in reality, we're about 25,000, and that's where we've been for a number of years. The next funds are the smaller funds. The new city council community promise is a small negative amount there. That's not a big concern. The state liquor allotment fund shows red there, but they get one major funding in January. We'll put that in black from the state. Capital improvement fund is in the red because we borrowed money, not borrowed, but paid money from that fund into pay for the public works facility. Storm drain, same thing there. The impact fee is we had a major project we were working on, and that's slowly getting moved back into black. So a lot of these are gonna show red, but it's because we're using fund balance. The overall funds are still in great shape, just show for this year they're in the red. Same with the Class C fund, moving money from that to the Public Works building, RAP tax, the same thing. Park Development Fund, you noticed, for a couple of years, we had about $30,000 in that fund. Now it's up to $139,000, just because the impact fees that we're collecting. And then the RDA, again, is showing the red, because we, again, get one major source of funding in about March, April timeframe, and we've been spending a little bit of money on the farm animal project. So even though there's a lot of red showing there, the overall, for the cash flow, the first chart shows that our fund is fine, because we're using some money this year for public works and for the farm animal project.
Okay.
So that's where we're at. Any questions?
Any questions for Gary? If not, then let's move on to item number 4, approval of our cash disbursements. Jess, do you want to take this?
Sure. It's a ratification of the amount for what was presented to you through email and previously approved for the period November 24th through December 7th.
Okay, so I'm making a motion to ratify what's already been approved. So moved. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Roll call vote, Wally?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous, thank you. And while we're here, Jeff, Annette, you wanna introduce yourself? I know we've all met you and stuff, but we'd like to welcome you. This is your first time at the city council meeting, and we appreciate you and all that you've been doing, and welcome you on board, and look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
So, Jeff, you want to introduce her to the public?
Well, like the mayor said, this is Annette Hampton. She's our new city recorder and finance clerk. So she'll occupy this seat here and do the driving for the meeting. And, we're very glad to have her on board. We plan on having her sworn in on our, January 15th.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to item number 5, which is a brief open session. So if there's anyone in the audience that would like to address the council, any questions or any concerns, please step forward, or give us your name and address for the record. And if you don't have a mad rush to the poll vote,
Mayor, I know that we have one gal in our audience who wanted to talk to you about something. Daniel, do you want to come up?
So you know how I said about, expo that are on campus? Yeah.
He's looking for an update. He came last spring, right?
Yeah.
And requested that we look at putting a
well, who in the little pocket neighborhood of our business primary.
Yeah, and so when I talked to our park people, we talked about this on Memorial Day, if I remember right. When I talked to our park people, they told us that we couldn't put a cement pad in the bottom of that because it serves as a retention basin. And that when it fills up with water, for example, if we have a 20-year storm,
That means we get a ton of water.
right, so when that fills up, it would ruin the pad, it would be hard for them to, to maintain it and stuff like that, so
Okay.
we're looking at other possibilities.
All right, so keep your eye out as you're riding your bike if you have any other good spots.
Yeah.
What do you think
So is there any possibility it could rain again?
No, because that's part of our retention, it helps prevent flooding in the neighborhood, it collects the water to be, dispersed into our stormwater system.
So, you know when it rains a lot by the pool, and there's all that water kind of in the field area? That's kind of the same idea, we put those in around the city to hold that extra water so it doesn't end up in our basement.
Okay.
Okay?
And since it doesn't rain and collect water all the time, we make it into what we call a pocket park, where you can play in it when there's not water in it. In fact, in Ryan's neighborhood, they even play in it when there's water in it. They had kayaks out there floating around and stuff like that, so. So does that help?
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thanks,
Awesome, thanks, Daniel.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Earn your merit badge, I'd say you just earned it.
Okay, and I don't see Rachel. Of course, we didn't have a meeting this week, so we're good. Is Melissa Todd coming, do you know?
He's on his way.
Okay. Should we go ahead and, with item number 7 and let you start the discussion, or is Todd a few minutes out?
Whatever you want, Mayor.
I just think that it'd be better to start with you and let you get some word in edgewise before Todd. No, I'm just joking.
If I may, I actually have some homemade hand-baked chocolates for all of you when you're done.
Wow.
There may be 2 for some, so we'll let you fight over who gets the rest.
I just order handmade, homemade candy, so you actually make it, good job.
So,
Thank you, Melissa, for being here. We appreciate it, and congratulations.
thank you. I'm looking forward to being able to work with all of you and continue to do so and all of you. So that's what being a legislator does, is making sure we know what's happening in our backyard.
Okay, so anything coming up on the legislature that we need to be aware of, that you're aware of, that we can either help you or whatever we can to behind the scenes to help push through?
With me being a freshman, I actually was given the advice not to do much, but listen and watch. And I actually have a handful of education bills that I hope will be very, helpful, in a number of ways. We have in my constituency, we have 4 cities between North Salt Lake, Woods Cross, West Downable, and Downable. And so we have a combination of district schools and charter schools, and so I've got some bills, that I hope will make a difference there. One bill actually that I need your feedback on, it came to my attention that a neighbor of mine is in a wheelchair, and he can only park in van accessible handicap spots. And he said it would make such a difference if you had a van handicap spot to be able to park in a van handicap spot, and others would not be allowed to park there. And he said, well, give me an idea, what's the numbers? And he said, well, if there's 10, there will be 2 vans. If there's 4, there will be 1. So if someone with a temporary or even a permanent handicap path parks there, then I have to park as far as the parking lot because I have a ramp that takes 2 spaces really. So I wanted to know, would that have any impact on you? It would not be a fiscal amount, because you wouldn't be changing signs, it would be the tags that hang. I just wanted to get your feedback as a city, of what you think, if that would be helpful, or it would be challenging, or what impact do you think that would have for you?
Give us an idea what the difference is between a van accessible and a regular van.
So a van accessible has to decide those extra lines.
How many?
Usually about half of a parking space.
It is about, on both sides actually, so that they're able to literally draw their ramp down. So whereas the other ones, people with crutches can get in and out. So they will literally say van accessible.
Right, that's
Yeah,
what
on
I'm
the sign, it will say van accessible, but right now, there's not a law that says only those that need a van can park there. So that's what he's addressing, is that those who need a van accessible don't really have it most of the time. So I just didn't know what your input would be for
Is
that.
that my gate, is it?
No,
Okay, so it's another one here.
So the question, if you only had two parking spots that are, and I don't know how many we have out here, I doubt we have 4 or 5. I mean, if you only had 2, would you need to designate one of those as van accessible? Or is it only if it's 4 and above?
my guess is in a small parking lot like this, there probably wouldn't be much of a change. And by law, there's already a certain amount, that if you have X number, then someone has to be banned. So, like I said, I don't think it would require you to change where you and how you put the parking. If it's 1 of 4, then it will already have that. But I just,
So this is just more of an enforcement, like all of the laws are already established, so going forward, maybe it would require new parking lot development to have, a van accessible, but maybe we're talking like when they go to the grocery stores or medical facilities, things like that with those large parking, where they do have the van accessible as well as the regular handicap, that it would be a specific permit that they would have to have.
that's right, and I was asked to specifically talk to cities to find out, your input on that bill.
So Tim, how would that impact our ordinances as far as our development ordinances?
Well, our development ordinances, it doesn't impact those specifically, the ADA requirements, they're established by the federal government and, kind of overseen by the building, inspector and those type of things, would probably be where the impact is might be, but I think specific to at least land use or zoning ordinance.
So we'd all have to go through the ADA and they would have to correct that on their end, right? And then we just adhere to those requirements, is that correct?
That's right, as we're looking at new development.
Is there anything preventing us from the city to ask developers to put that in their commercial sites or whatever we're working on, or is that something that we can't do because it's not codified?
Yeah, probably one of those things that should be consistent from the top down and, not just be, community specific, not confusion and something.
I guess I had a concern too, if you're designated so many handicap spots, if 5% of our handicap population needs it, but I'd hate for a handicapped individual that's not in a wheelchair to be put out in the back while a handicapped spot sits vacant up front because it's for van only when the vans are only 5% of the population that would use it. That would be my concern, to say nobody gets to use it unless there's a van, unless there's really a need, and I don't know what that percentage is, because I don't want it to go vacant, like somebody that legitimately needs a handicap spot has to walk or crutch or whatever to do that. I think it's a great idea. I just worry that it would sit vacant so much of the time and others wouldn't get the opportunity to use it because nobody's allowed to park there. So it is kind of attached, maybe placards that say, if you need, unless you really, please use the other ones first and leave this as the last resort. And that needs to be more of an education than an enforcement.
So how I can follow up with you, I'm actually working with those with disabilities who work with the legislature, and they are getting me some of their statistics. So when I get them, I would love to be able to have you look at them at your next city council meeting and then just report back to me if you have any other thoughts, or if you would support that or not support it. So my other two bills that you can watch for actually have to do with, really being accountable for school funds, any public funds, as well as for construction of buildings. Davis County is very responsible as a county. Our schools actually have a hired in-house, foreman, so to speak, for all of their construction, but not many of the districts do. So our costs are way down, and so it's just a way for all of the districts to realize your vice principals or your vice superintendents are not foremen. And so, I hope that through, at least two of these bills for construction as well as for school spending, the school spending one has, a great opportunity that our state school board is working on a hub that all the finances, these, to date, have been reporting to 2 or 3 entities, and they've been working on a hub that all of it can come. So part of my bill, not only says, yes, the LEAs report to that, but we as citizens want to know, therefore, what is the average teacher salary, or what debt service does my school have, or how does this compare? Right now, if you ask the district, even Davis County, they'll give us a great 1-inch thick paper and it means nothing to me. So this is really, since it'll be in one hub, it'll be a practical way for us as citizens to be able to look at it. So if there's any input that all of our citizens, as well as you, have on what you would be interested in seeing online, your school, percentages of teacher to student ratio, or spending, how much is actually per student, because it varies. The superintendents are in charge of distributing those funds, and it varies from district to district. So I hope that this will be a positive thing for us as taxpayers to know where our tax dollars are going.
And that would be school specific within the district, is that correct?
It actually will require the LEA, so a district is an LEA, a charter school is an LEA. Some charter schools have 2 or 3 underneath them, but that's just the way that they do their reporting right now. But their new hub, really, instead of going to 2 or 3 offices within the state, will go to one bank, which is why I'm really incorporating the taxpayer portion of it, so that we can see what therefore, how are our tax dollars being spent, and how does it affect my school. So I hope that both of those are ones you can watch for, and I hope that they'll be effective.
So Melissa, you're looking to incorporate the tax, property tax, the income tax, all the revenue sources and the federal revenue sources to be reported in one place per school that are distributed to each school. Is that?
This is actually from the inside out, so to speak. Instead of saying, here's all the money that's coming down, it is saying to the schools, you have the money, what are you doing with it? Where are you spending? It'll say, here's how much funds you have. I don't know if it'll say exactly where all that's coming from, but this is really from the inside out to say, where are we spending our money? And I know that the state auditor, for example, has been working with 3 districts that is amazing. Online, they can literally see how the district is doing financially and where the monies are spent. They can even go down to the teacher level and say there's 2 science teachers. This one sends this many dollars, but this one has better results. And
So
that's not going to be for the public, all of that information, but they will be able to take this information to say, how is our school doing, and what are the results of our teacher salary and administration and.
So how is it different from the transparency.econ.gov now?
Have you looked on that site?
Yes, I use it all the time.
So when I've gone in there, I see a big number.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean anything to me. It doesn't tell me, even when I was looking on there, it says this is how much for teacher salaries. It doesn't say for how many salaries that's for. It's just the numbers. So this is literally the things that we as taxpayers, as a parent, I want to know how many dollars for my kid are being spent at my school.
No. Okay, so, how are you going to address those who hire third parties to do the administration? For instance, a charter school will hire and this happens often in business, that you'll have, all of your real estate in one entity, then you'll hire all your people in another entity, and then the school itself receives the W to you. it's just paying for those services. So you really don't get to look back to the actual salaries or information. How would you address that?
Good
issue?
question. Two responses to that. One of them is I've been working with Roy Van Tassel, who, is on the state charter board, and he has worked with the legislature for years. He's the one that has said, this is really important, and I wanna work with you. So we're getting that charter school perspective, and he's the one that has said these are public funds. For example, one of the forms I saw was that there's $700 million that the state of Utah has basically co-signed on, loans for charter schools, single-handedly, that the state of Utah has been taking. So if that is the case, they are already considered your and my dollars that are going there. So one of them is I've been working with Roy Van Tassel of what he thinks is productive and helpful for charter schools. And then the second thing is that's what the state auditor and the state treasurer, I am not setting forth what it is, they're actually setting forth what they are needing for their accounting. Much of it is already coming in. So in meeting with both of those, they are the ones saying, we need to be accountable for our taxpayers, which is already part of Utah code. You know, if I, for example, remodel a home and I hire a general contractor to hire all the subs, I still look at the bills. If I just said, just send me the total bill, I don't even know where my dollars are going to. So that's the example that Royce gave me. He just said, we are accountable for public funds and where they go. So I'm not setting the guidelines for that. This is being set by the state auditor, the state treasurer, who are bound by law to report public funds and how they're spent. So I am really doing, that's already in place. I'm the one that's saying, we want the dashboard that says, therefore, here's what they're already doing, and they are putting that together, not me. Therefore, as parents, what do we want to know? So that's really the part of the bill that I'm, part of. So because today I can't look anywhere to find, really know how my school is doing. I don't think schools know how they're doing on some of those things either, so it's supposed to help.
So that's great,
Yeah.
and, you know, kind of like that, and also maybe talk a little bit about some things that we would like to do.
Please, yeah.
On the side.
And
Do you want
Todd,
to-
we'd like to invite Todd to come up too. Thanks for being here. So there's 5 things that we've identified as a city that we're concerned about. I know Todd's aware of some, and Melissa and I've talked about some. But number one is the continuing Legacy Parkway truck ban into the future. It sunsets the end of 2020, right?
Yeah,
The first of 2020. And so I know that Todd, that we've been in touch with you, and you submitted a bill.
Yeah, I've got a bill file open. I think one thing that you may wanna, I think if we try to extend it for like 2 years, it'll have a less chance of getting killed than if we try to extend it for 15 years. So I think that's one thing we should talk about. I think it's controversial already. There's a lot of support I'm getting since it's got some media coverage, which I did not initiate. I'm getting a lot of letters of support from people, mostly in Foxborough, but some East Crossing, West Conoco. I think most of the cities, your neighboring cities have passed resolutions supporting. I'm not sure about West Conoco, but I know North Salt Lake has several. Yeah. I don't think so. Well, actually, someone told me they have, but I haven't researched that. Someone set up a little town hall that we've been invited to in Foxborough, next month. I think you're involved in that. I've invited. So I've invited, I've got UDOT and Bryceburg from DAQ coming, so we'll have some real knowledge there, not just opinions and speculation. But yes, I'm running that bill. I don't know if it'll pass. I'm concerned, about some of the opposition, but I think
we understand the opposition, we definitely do.
yeah,
So,
it's a debate and discussion that we should definitely have.
yeah. So anyway, we really appreciate that. Number 2 is
I'll maybe give you a little bit, this last year I've been serving on the Davis Chamber Legislative Affairs Committee and on the Transportation Committee, mostly because I've been very interested in how we can help our area with train tracks and so forth, right? So without me being the one to say, here's what I want, here's what is in the plan, that has been discussed, in every meeting that I've been to in the last little while, including, all of the plans for Davis County, and that is, there is a plan that they're, just like out down south, they have redone the freeway. They're wanting a complete rehaul of I-15 from North Salt Lake, north. So that is not, decided, but they are wanting to make sure that is in the plan to be, designed and put forth. I do know that a bridge for the railroad tracks is up pretty high in the queue, to go over that. So one of the things that I brought up is the potential need is that they're going to be expanding I-15 and redoing that, whatever plan they do for the bridge, I don't wanna have to spend the same dollars to do the bridge again. So for me, I just wanna make sure that the plan is making sense if they do that first, which is right now, the way that I saw the priorities, the way that that fits in, I just wanna make sure that we don't double the cost of what that would be. And then they're also discussing with that a third lane on Legacy. So, that is the long-term, approach, and I know that this year there's more, one-time cash that they want to put towards transportation. Again, these are things that take a while to get in the queue. So that's what the overall plan is going to be, and I especially with more traffic coming from the west, that's how to manage that. So that's just kind of an update of what I've been hearing for months, the last little while, so.
Yeah, we understand the pushback and everything, we're gonna get on this, but I don't think that Legacy Parkway, well, first of all, was not constructed, for heavy truck use.
That's actually not true.
You don't think so?
No.
Well, I talked to Carlos Caceros about
Okay.
last week, and he said that's absolutely not true.
Okay, well, that's what we were told anyway, and the fact that it's a scenic byway,
I've been reading that, but then people have been posting on Facebook, so I just called Carlos.
and just found out for
Yeah,
for
he's
sure.
an engineer, he's got to do that, so.
Okay.
Well, he was the one in charge of doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's absolutely not true.
And some of the scenic byway will maintain as far as the amount of space on both sides of the freeway, that will be required, so a lot of that will, even with the third lane, will be set up that way, which I think is really nice. But again, this is a few years down, I think it's just
So
helpful
the
to know
scenic
what they're
byway
expecting.
doesn't really mean if we wanna control the numbers they're using Legacy, right? It's more of pretty dry when they call it the scenic byway, it still could eventually become like the freeway.
Yeah, the scenic byway really doesn't control.
It doesn't mean
Right.
anything. It's just a beautification.
Right.
Usually that's had more than the lack of billboards.
Billboards
There
really.
used to be some funding for scenic byways, but all that's dried up, so now it really is whatever you want it to be, but you don't have any money.
But it doesn't mean we can
You got
say,
bike
nope,
trails.
you can't come here, there's already
No.
15 of you.
No.
And where I live in North Salt Lake, I don't go down there unless I go down there for recreation.
Yeah.
You know, just because of the
There's
location.
no on-ramp for you either.
There's no access, but it does for other people, you know, it just happens to not work for me. I'm wanting a better way to get people off of the North Salt Lake exit.
Yeah, we just have a great portion of our population who would like to, you know, they'll go down there and use the bike trails, walking trails, stuff like that, and because I don't know why, but they feel safer because there's no big semi trucks driving the road, and it's a little bit quieter, to go down there and ride your bike and just participate as a community in those bike trails, and so that's all part of it, and I'm sure we'll continue to have that.
And I did request work on the
Yes.
so we'll see where that goes.
So, Todd, on the legacy and the change over there, I mean, there was a couple of things that were, you know, kind of, if we're going to another third lane and stuff, I mean, that.
None of that's been.
Yeah, it does, but, like it was made of the recycled rubber, I mean, there was a bunch of, you know, the asphalt down there is made from recycled rubber, so it has a little quieter effect, if you will.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I remember right, you and I were both here when we built all that, and And so there's all these things that he will.
Well, remember, there was years of litigation,
Yeah.
so there was a settlement reached, and there were certain stipulations for the settlement. And one of the stipulations was all of those would go away in 2020, and so,
Yeah,
you know, I'm getting a lot of emails and, people that didn't live in our community back then, that don't really know the history, and, it's interesting some of the arguments people are inventing, but the reality is the state agreed to these things, and they agreed to do them for this amount of time. But, yeah, I mean, so, you know, so what you're saying is stay out of third lane, and you could be a.
well, yeah, I mean, you're changing, yeah, no,
Yeah.
you're right, they're getting to a third year. But I guess I would like to see, if that does come, that we make sure that we talk about some things that they said absolutely no on Legacy, and that would be, you know, like the sound wall. It would be, you know, they've got that curve there, we lost a couple of cars off it on a regular basis, especially in the winter and so forth. So there would have to be, and that's why I was surprised by the engineer thoughts there, that curve, we lose a couple cars off it all the time.
If there are specific places like that, send me an email with, I'm thankful for it.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of something that we would like to maybe ensure that, you know, as with no sound wall, because you guys all built here after it came on, but yeah, but you're changing the functionality, you're changing the quality of life along the road.
Just so we're clear,
Yeah.
the legislature is, we pass laws and we
Right.
fund things. The executive branch are the ones that design the roads. You know, there's a transportation list, and so we throw money at that list, but, you know, we don't, you know, typically, I mean, it's unusual, but anyway, so all of those details you're talking about, I'm happy to pass those along, but those are all executive branch decisions.
Right.
So, I mean, I won't, no one's gonna ask me about a curve in the road, or about, how quiet the road is, all of that in the executive branch.
Yeah, I think that, what we would look for perhaps, is the support from the legislation there.
Yeah.
That the executive branch be able to, make some concessions if they look to change the quality.
Yeah. Certainly, I'll offer that input, but just like we don't like them stepping on our toes, they don't really appreciate it when we try to step on theirs. But it doesn't stop us from trying, but it's.
Yeah, well, you guys are still big dogs, you know. But anyway, so that's a concern, I think, for us. And I think that, and again, you know, probably the other issues that we have related to River Road, same thing, state road, but yeah, it's just like, I can't, sit there and scratch your head. Who in the right mind would not have extended the turn lane with just 50 feet to allow cars to turn? Now we've got a commercial development down there, and we've got a 1-lane road, 3 lanes that goes down to 1 in a matter of feet, and it's just, we just need some, if you will, some opportunities to keep our shape. I don't know if the details of the issues we're having down there, or not, but there's certainly time to address it.
Yeah.
Just in that last, 2 miles from the road, it's just.
And I think, and we'll continue to work with, with and stuff like that, on those particular, the other major thing that we need your help with, and that's the community impact fund. And see if we can get some of those money, I guess, to come down here to help mitigate the impact that we have from the refineries and the traffic that we receive from that. And I know it's been an uphill battle for years and years, but we sent letters to the governor, we sent letters, appealing for that type of money to help us. I think, and I think, Melissa,
I'll bring it up.
Okay. But anyway, we're just impacted by the refineries all the way around us.
Yeah.
And it gets to that point with increased trucking from the basement and all that other stuff. Trucks coming in from Wyoming and different places bringing crude and stuff into the refineries. We're feeling the impact from all of the traffic from large trucks. So whatever help that you can give us on that would be appreciated.
And I know my buddy Chris down in charge of Inland Port, he's like director, Chris Cundy. And I looked at that, and we talked about.
6 months though, right?
Like that paycheck. Anyway, he doesn't do anything half-hearted. there's, I think when we're talking about the impact of trucks, as the refineries are here and so forth, and I just, I cringe to think, and I have been there meetings and talked about, the increase in truck traffic. And our poor little city here has become overran with trucks. And you look at even Google Maps at any time and just look at the number of trucks are here in the city. And I think that this is, it's really kind of hitting the wall now. And the consternation of having that truck traffic go through our city, or around our city, through our city. So I just would like to see some, and, Go Ahead is going full guns, but what are the biggest mistakes? Manufacturing jobs. Is data centers, manufacturing jobs don't pay enough wages. They're who they are, they just don't pay enough wages, so that's their primary. So I think we need to look perhaps of reining in, the incentives and stuff, and making sure that we're getting our impact in the city itself, we realize those impacts.
Yeah.
I'll step on the other side of the argument now, with all the details of the
I'll just remind you, G and Go as governors,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
legislatures. right?
Yeah, but you guys go for the first three and the
Maybe we should start low at it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But as that inventory peaks up, that's when I realize the impact it's gonna have to the Southeast County, and it's not.
Fortunately, most of those trucks will be headed out of state, so, they might stop in this cross state gas.
That's not enough, that's not enough.
Is there anything else that the council has questions on?
I have a question on the safety inspections, those were dissolved. Is the state doing anything to study the traffic accidents and things like that? To see if there's a change?
I'll check on that. So a couple of things that I want you to know. So all of the laws behind the safety inspections are still in place. So it's still illegal to drive with a cracked windshield. We're just not making you go and have someone say
But are
that
they
your windshield.
enforcing it?
Yeah.
Because,
Well, the enforcement comes when you get pulled over, or you get in a car accident or whatever. But the other thing I want to tell you is, we were the 36th state to do away with the mandatory station inspections, and this started over a decade ago. And one of the reasons why Utah did this, and we talked about doing this my very first session, which was 2012, and we didn't. But, in the other 35 states, there was no data over a decade of period showing an increase in traffic accidents. And the reality is, the cars that we buy today are so much safer than they were even, 10, 20 years ago. I'm not saying that these inspections have no good. I was one of the ones that was very reluctant to do away with them, but I couldn't deny the data. So I don't know of any study in Utah, but I can tell you in states 10 times as big as Utah, there was no adverse effect years after stopping the mandatory inspection.
okay, my question, another follow-up to that is, so if someone does get in an accident and they say they have bad tires, are they being cited for that?
Well, again, that's executive branch.
Yeah.
I would love to write tickets as a legislator. So far.
I think we all would love to write tickets if we were on.
But I will ask,
Okay.
I have a good relationship with UHP, so.
That would be great. We own an auto repair shop, and what my husband is finding is people aren't fixing their cars. They're not worrying about the safety, because
Yeah.
in their mind, those laws have gone away because the inspection went away.
Yeah,
And he tells them, and they're just like, whatever. Like, an example is, he had a customer come in, needed new tires, transmission, wanted to drive their car to Mexico, and all they had fixed was the cruise control.
mhm,
So it's just, like, I know, and I'm like, that's really gonna come in handy when you're like broken down in the desert.
yeah,
But that's what him as a mechanic is saying, that a lot of people
sure.
have interpreted that going away as it went away. I don't have to worry about those things.
Yeah,
I'll take my chances.
and the flip side of this, because the laws are still in place, as you know.
Yeah.
This Amazon sales tax collection method, I got really, and again, that was the governor's office decision a year ago, but I got all these mad emails about this new tax, and it's like, no, the use tax has been in place for over a decade, we're just helping you comply with that, and nobody seems to appreciate that. But that door swings both ways.
You remember our conversations back in
Yeah,
Washington DC,
yeah,
right? When,
yeah, I do,
yeah, Governor Levin brought all that up.
Yeah.
It was, yeah, it's been in the making for several years.
yeah.
I did ask though, regarding registration for cars. Right now, they send 200,000 postcards a month. And I said, these are digital. You could send 3 of them instead of 1 and save that money. And if you have a registration could you pay it for 2 or 3 years in a row if you didn't need,
It's a brand new car.
a brand new
Yeah.
car. So at least I got that conversation going with them. It doesn't need to come from the legislature, but I said, this is something that I think would make a difference for saving the cost of 200,000 postcards. I'm not sure. And if people opt to want it, then that's great, pay $2 and somebody will still do it for you, but at least it will save, I'd rather have 3 email reminders, but.
Then when cars get lost, yeah.
Or email this one, and just one.
But you get 3 of us, yeah,
Yeah.
great.
All three automatically go to just one. Okay, the last one, you guys do have control on. We were talking about affordable housing legislation that's on the horizon, which is near and dear to our heart, because it's finishing up a little bit on our general plan. And, of course, our constituents are saying that many, like surrounding areas, they really don't like to see the multiple high-rise housing in their residential neighborhoods. So, what's on the horizon for that?
Affordable housing concerns were just, I think, at the tip of the iceberg, as our population, doubles over the next, 30 years, it's gonna get a lot worse. I think right now, and Centerville City's actually got out on this, I think there might be some legislation on, accessory, use dwellings, AUDs. So this is the mother-in-law apartments and units, a lot of cities ban those, and I think if the legislature does anything this year, it'll probably be with that. It is interesting that, the Speaker of the House for the last 4 years and the President of the Senate for the last 4 years have been developers, and they have both been replaced by developers. That hasn't been lost on anyone. And so I do know that, I've heard kind of some rumors and rumblings, that there might be something coming down the pipeline. I haven't seen anything like that. So one of the best things about the legislature is any legislator can write any bill they want. One of the worst things is any legislator can write any bill they want, but we don't know what our colleagues are planning. And sometimes our colleagues don't know what they're planning yet. So a lot of times we find out, just like we do from the newspaper or something else. So, but I know the AUDs will be discussed a lot.
Yeah, and I know Bountiful passed a resolution in Loudon, in Bountiful, they've done that.
And
But
I
I think,
would rather see that happen from the city level, not from us.
Well, I think what we're gonna see is the legislature saying that cities can't just do an outright ban, but they have to have.
we just have some concerns about losing some of that local control.
Yeah,
We understand the issue, we understand that our kids are having kids and they wanna stay next to mom and dad.
yeah,
They wanna stay in our community, and I've been working with the mayors, quite regularly on this issue, and we were having a conversation the other day, and we were talking about these 6-story apartment complexes that are starting to pop up around and different things, and somebody was joking with Glenn and Glenn said, hey, I'll take your kids all day long. We'll accept them into our community, and we have to look at it that way. It's our kids that are, probably 80% of the population growth is from our children. And so, it's an interesting, problem that we're facing, but we still, I think, as Melissa said, we still need to maintain some local control.
yeah.
Setting.
And as a former city council member myself, I've always tried to be one of the voices saying, look, we need to stay in our lane, let the cities do their lane. But there are some issues, I think, there was an issue, a couple cities banned Rottweilers a couple of years ago, and then we had issues where people couldn't even drive their dogs, even though they lived in a city that allowed them, they couldn't drive to the vet without passing through a city that disallowed. When things get to that, level, then I do think the legislature has to that, and this is a tender issue for Melissa, but anyway, but it's when, it's not just your city that you're affecting,
Oh, no.
you're
No, I
affecting
agree.
all of the communities around.
I have a good friend who just lost her leg, or probably will lose her leg from a pit bull fight.
That wasn't a
6
lot of
weeks ago,
fun.
yeah. But, you know, I did contribute to the population growth. I have 6 kids, and where did they end up finding? I have 2 that recently got married. Where did they end up finding a place? North Salt Lake.
Yeah.
So, but I have one suggestion to think about as a city council. Look at your city, and you determine where you would like to work with private developers, to say, here's where we would like more of the more dense, housing. And let's plan it, if there's gonna be the rapid bus transit system of getting, you know, that's gonna help our bus system that's coming in here shortly. That's just one thing to think about, is to be, take initiative to be proactive instead of waiting for all of them to come to you to say, here's what we wanna do. I think you can kind of choose some areas where you think it may be, better for your city to have that growth and plan.
Yeah,
So
and that's
that's
what
just an idea.
and that's what we've done with our general fund,
Yeah.
so, which we're gonna approve tonight.
Yeah, and I think our general plan people probably will correct me a little bit here, but that there's been a decline of children in the school kindergarten classes, of a decline in the past 3 years. Actually, it's a very small vision of a percentage. So that immigration actually is contributing more than birth growth in the city. So I think that we have a little bit different clip than we have the last, 50 years or so. And so we need to be cognizant of that and ensure that we work, with that, so. And not just the, anecdotal,
Is that incorporating the fact that we've opened all new elementary schools?
well, your kindergarten are still,
Yeah.
If the interesting to see if homeschool enrollment has increased.
actually, well, we can get into that. That's part of the discussion. No,
It's a
but
fairly-
at home schools actually decrease.
That's what I'm
It's a
wondering.
fairly small part of the equation. Charter school enrollment has increased,
Yeah, charter schools are higher, absorb the home schools.
but even statewide.
So right at the start, we got Melissa's, things that she was gonna work on. I'd be interested to hear what Todd's initiatives and priorities are, and maybe how those would directly impact Woods Cross.
I've got about 22 bill files, I've spent 3 minutes on each of them. The only thing I think that I'm running that will directly impact Woods Cross is probably the extension of the truck ban. I'm chairing judiciary committee again, and I'm now going to be serving on government operations for the first time, so I'm going to get some more government ops stuff that I haven't gotten in the past, but, I can't think of, I'm running, this may affect you, I'm running a bill that will, I've been kind of the leader on the indigent defense, and, I will be running a bill, it's actually a committee bill that's passed out unanimously for the interim, that will make sure that all juveniles have, public defenders as well. That's something, so juveniles, it turns out, who knew, have the same constitutional rights as adults, but we've kind of neglected them, in our system, and so, and the governor in his, recommended budget, has put in $5 million ongoing for indigent defense. That would be state money that we would then, distribute to the Indigent Defense Commission, to counties and cities and grants, and I'm on that commission. I created that commission, and my punishment for that is I have to serve on it now. But, and just so we're all clear on the governor's budget, probably I gotta be careful because the media's here. We passed a statute years ago that requires the governor to release a proposed budget every December, so that's in the law. But his budget, is a wish list. So the legislature, one of the few things that we control is the purse strings. And so this is basically him saying, if I got to do the budget, this is what I'd like to do. Now, of course, he can veto whatever budget we decide, so of course we listen to him, and there's usually some intense negotiations going on. But a lot of people, I'll get emails sometimes saying, do your job and pass the governor's budget. I really literally get those emails. Well, our job is to actually make our own budget, and of course with his input, you know, which is welcome. But, a lot of people don't understand that separation of powers. And so this is him saying, if I got through the budget, this is where I put my priorities. And of course, the legislature usually gives deference to that. But, I can tell you, because I spent all day in the caucus today, I know most of it on the House side, that, there's a lot of things in the governor's budget that I don't think will be funded this year, because we have some structural imbalance that we need to fix. And by the way, I'll say this as well, right before the big recession in 2008, 2009, we had this huge surge, like we're experiencing right now, and then it evaporated in a matter of months. And so we're not gonna spend all the money and hope that it doesn't evaporate again. And of course, you know, anybody that looks at recessions knows that we're in, I think, the longest post-World War II expansion economy right now. We typically have a recession every, 6 years or so. And so this looks up, to our economists that work for the legislature, this looks and feels a lot like 2007, 2008. And so the governor, just so you know, and this is part of his job, he has literally spent every penny that is projected to come in over the next 18 months. And that's, that's saying how he would spend it. But I don't think the legislature is going to take that same approach. And to the prior discussion about transportation, he literally has not spent a penny of the new money on transportation. And I can tell you with Stuart Adams, the new Senate president, transportation will be a big priority for the Senate moving forward. So it'll be interesting to see. But the hardest sessions, anyone will tell you, the hardest legislative sessions are when we have a lot of money done, because it's a lot easier to tell no to everyone than to tell no to just 80% of people and say yes to 20%. So that's kind of what we're, and people come out of the woodwork when they feel that we have money. Everybody, now it's our turn, and we've been waiting all this time. So it'll be an interesting session.
Well, we appreciate both of you, and what you do for us, and thank you for representing us and working so closely with us. It's been a pleasure to do
Well,
that.
thank you.
And just one last comment, I'd like to thank, Paul and Melissa. On my personal side, I work for Bountiful Irrigation, and there's a field out there right now that require all irrigation to be metered, which is an incredible expense with no way to pay for it, and both Todd and Melissa spent, Melissa even a couple hours at our last board meeting, getting it all the top.
In the trenches.
No, we didn't put her to work in the backhoe, but I appreciate both of you coming and focusing on that.
And just to make it extra easy on us, the meeting started at 7 a.m.
I know. So thank you for attending my board, asked me to pass that on to them.
Appreciate all the hard work that you folks do.
And enjoy the chocolate.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a great
Thank you.
Christmas.
Well, you were late.
Thank you, guys. Okay, now we're on to item number 8, the police department report. Adam?
I know, yours.
Well, good evening, everyone. Are you excited for the holidays? Are you excited for more law enforcement PowerPoints?
Yes.
All right.
I saw you had pictures.
No, at least it's a background, but.
I like photos.
Yeah, I thought about that too. I think when I'm gonna wait until we do our upgraded IT stuff, because I think our PowerPoint will come with a lot more background. So November, 842 calls, and this is pretty much normal. I think we're probably gonna beat last year by a couple hundred calls, by the end of this month, but nothing too drastic. So we're right where we should be with calls. Activity report, we did a Davis School District safety meeting. I wanted to let you guys know that the district is stepping up their game when it comes to surveillance and monitoring student activity. They're starting basically an intelligence center, that is tracking students that have had a history of fighting and things like that. They're watching those students a lot more closely, so that was something that we were glad to see. We were invited up to Hill Air Force Base to conduct sexual assault training, so that was good for us. We were able to go up there and train some of their military investigators, not only about our sexual assault investigations, but also the lethality assessment, so that was good.
kind of back up in here.
Yeah.
On the day of school district safety meeting, I appreciate your thoughts on what just happened. Was there any thought about the busing and the crossing guards and some things like that? Is that?
They didn't discuss, our last meeting was, basically touring this new room they have up at their offices that is focusing on, social media and things like that they're tracking, from school to school. But yeah, they didn't discuss anything about transportation during the last meeting. Okay. One of the most stressful things I've had to do was the chili cook-off. You know, as you guys know, police officers are under a lot of stress, but I'll tell you, nothing like judging a local chili cook-off. When you have to look your citizens in the eye and tell them they're third place, it can be a little rough. But, what a great experience for our guys. I mean, wonderful food. It was nice to be a part of that community event, rub elbows with our firefighters, and the people in our city. So that was wonderful fun. I'd like to do it every year, so Mayor, think of me next year for next October. We did our last, CPA graduation. I just want to thank West Bountiful for hosting that. We've had some pretty quick changes to the program, and West Bountiful really stepped up and was able to host that at their city offices, so we're very thankful. I learned this month, it hasn't been set in stone yet, but we think that maybe Centerville Police Department will be taking over hosting the CPA, at least for the next little while. I don't know if that'll be just a year, maybe 2 or 3. So we're glad to see that program is not just gonna flop. We had one of our annual firearms qualifications. This year, we tried to change it up a little bit. We did just our normal qualification. We bought some pizza for the officers, and then we also had a shooting competition. And I think that's good for our officers to be able to, you know, once they've qualified and the stress is over, we can start to focus just a little bit more on lighthearted training. I think it's good for our officers to become familiar with their equipment, their firearms, maintenance and cleaning and things like that.
So who's our best marketing?
You know, we got some shooters. We got some shooters in the department.
Someone in the audience is pointing at you.
Well, we don't have a championship belt, but it may come to that. Sheldon himself is also a good shot.
Shot at and I.
Right. And speaking of firearms, if you guys maybe have some interest, I think it would be beneficial for everybody if you guys, maybe we invited you out to the range and did some weapon, familiarity. And I think it'd be a good, bonding experience for the police department to get to know you guys a little better. So if that's something you're interested in, reach out, let me know, and we can schedule it. We won't do it in the winter, I promise, that's not fun.
Not as targets, right?
No, you guys will be on the same side of the ring, we will not be on different ends of the ring, I promise.
Ryan, thanks for clarifying.
Right.
Moving car.
Whoever runs fast,
Right.
Go, you only have to run faster than the person behind
you
you.
just have to, no, I've seen it in movies, you run, it's
Well, you just have to be one of the first ones to the ballistic shield.
there you go, I'll bring my own.
So we did the Woods Cross Christmas tree lighting ceremony, which is growing. Every year I go, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And, it was pretty chilly that night, and what a great turnout. I think it's awesome, that you had Santa elves and Santa there. Just a cool experience, so thanks again for doing that. Also in November, we had a memorial service for Officer Charlie Skinner. For those of you who remember, Charlie was killed 10 years ago, in November, in a traffic accident that stemmed from a vehicle pursuit of a stolen vehicle. The FOP, along with the local agencies in Bountiful, made it a point to recognize Charlie every year on the anniversary of his death. And of course, our thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family, and also the law enforcement community. So it was something that we'd like to participate in every year. And I think it's important to remember those that have, made that ultimate sacrifice for our community. So this is a picture of Charlie. I had the opportunity to work with him for a short time, and just what a positive, lighthearted guy he was. And, at the time of his death, he left 2 little baby twins, so just a horrible thing, but.
Did they come out to the memorial?
They do, yeah. His children are there, his wife, his widow, is there, and a lot of the family members. So it's good to, catch up with them, make sure that they're being taken care of, and, like I said, it's just something we really like to participate in, so. please keep him in your thoughts. Use of force reviews, we had a stolen vehicle located in North Salt Lake, occupants were taken into custody at gunpoint, without any incident. But of course, anytime we pull our firearms out and have to brandish them, you know, that can be very alarming to people. So we want to make sure that we're documenting those instances and doing use of force reviews, which we do on anytime any of the officers in our agency use force. It's reviewed to make sure that our policies and procedures are up to date, and then also our officers are following those procedures. So, Assistant Centerville PD on a mentally disturbed man, who was reported to have a knife. During their contact with him, officers had a hard time, just de-escalating the situation at some point because they thought he might be a threat to them and the public. He was taken into custody. He did not have a knife, but physical force was needed to take him to the ground and get him detained in handcuffs and things like that, so.
Are most of our officers CIT trained?
All of them are.
They are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the first things we do when they get hired is make sure, we send them to the CIT.
Just for everyone else, CIT is crisis intervention training, so.
And they've actually cut down the really long training, down to 1 or 2 days, which is a benefit for us because sometimes it's hard to lose a patrolman for a week, so. But what a great program. I've been there. Part of the training is you have to wear these headphones that whisper all sorts of stuff in your head for hours. And it's an eye opener, you know, to get a glimpse into the world of somebody who may be suffering from mental illness. You know, you realize that if they're behaving erratically, it's not necessarily out of violent intent, it just may be something that they're struggling with. So I think it's a benefit that our officers get that training. So, it gives them more understanding of dealing with somebody like that. SWAT team activity, we didn't have any deployments, just the regular federal training, monthly training, and NCOE training. School activities, it was a busy month for the school. We had a theft of the cell phone, later found this is our second case where our Detective Lynn starts to look into something and miraculously the property is found, so that's good. We had a fight involving 4 students, all 4 were suspended. We had an assault where a student punched another student. We had a criminal mischief, students climbing around on a vehicle that caused some damage. We had 4 students that broke into the school to enter the tunnels. I don't know if any of you have ever been into the tunnels. I thought it would be like this really cool experience.
No.
You only get about 50 feet into them before you have to start climbing over and through pipes and spiders and mice, and I'm like, I'm good.
Are
I'm
they
sure
under
they're.
the school, or I don't even know what's.
Those bomb shelter stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of it is just for electrical conduit and plumbing, but you can get through there, and I think do they go under the road? All the way under the road? Like I said, I've only been like 50 feet, and I was like, I get the
So
gist of
did you
it.
have any experience climbing in the tunnel?
Yeah, I'm
As a student and.
That is an option.
Yeah, but it's kind of funny, because you can see I gave up about the time most students do, because it's like graffiti, 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 and then it's like clean walls, like, they're like, well, it's dark now, so we're leaving. We had 2 traffic accidents with no injuries, and, we had a drug arrest where a student had THC oil. I can tell you this is becoming wildly popular in a lot of high schools. This THC oil it's really hard to detect, especially if it's mixed with other vaping flavors. It doesn't smell like marijuana. So we are testing, our officers are testing most of the vapes that we come into contact with, just to make sure that there's not any illegal substances in it.
And they can't legally unless they're 18 days, can they?
No. And in fact, the kids used to feel, well, this doesn't have any nicotine in it. Well, the law has covered that. It just basically says no vaping, no accessories, juice, batteries, mods is what they call them.
That's the federal law, right?
Mm-hmm. Canine activity, we did a demo for Centerville Junior High, 2 demos for Bountiful High School. We did an assist to Davis County on a vehicle search, no drugs were found. We did an assist to Bountiful Police on a residential burglary and of course, the monthly training. Just so you guys know, Officer Corey Boyle's dog has had some health issues this last month. It's a personally owned dog that he personally insures. We think the dog is just gonna be fine, but I just wanted to let you guys know, if you see Corey, reach out to him, just let him know that you're thinking of him, because I know it's been hard on him and his family with this, his dog.
Lost the other dog, in October, right?
Yeah. So it's been a rough couple months for our canine guys, so just, if you see them, tell them how much you appreciate them, and, I'm sure Corey would love to hear it. Detective division, we have 22 active TANR cases, 22 active, everything else cases, which is theft, property fraud, and assault. 5 of those right now are pending at the Davis County Attorney's Office under review, so they're completed, we're just waiting for the charges to be filed. This is the case spotlight for November. On November 28th, we had a armed robbery at 7-Eleven at 1515 South 500 West. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with this location. Two armed individuals came in and basically jumped the counter, threatened the clerk at gunpoint, took some cash out of the register, and some tobacco products. Evidence was collected on scene, including a neighborhood canvass, that was conducted where we were able to identify a suspect vehicle that was seen dragging around the location a few times before the robbery occurred. Our detectives tracked that car to an address in Ogden, where they notified Ogden police, who had also had a robbery with matching suspects, that, hey, we think we found the car involved. Ogden sent the detective down, and our guys were in the middle of writing a warrant for the car and the address connected to the car in Ogden, when the suspect fled. Luckily, one of the Ogden detectives had put some spikes behind the car, that deflated one of the tires before the suspect fled. Again, our guys and Ogden didn't even know if there was a suspect at that location. A short vehicle pursuit occurred. There was a traffic accident at Depot Drive and 12th Street in Ogden, with Ogden police leading and our guys as a support vehicle. At that time, the Ogden officer approached the car, where the suspect pointed a rifle. Ultimately, the suspect was shot and killed. In our case, we have 3 suspects. One is already in custody. We have the one that was shot and killed in Ogden, and there's a 3rd suspect, who I am confident that we will be able to identify and bring to justice. Like I said, these 3 individuals were involved in the robbery of 4 locations, one of which were Corpus Christi. So these were individuals that we needed to get off the street. I have to tell you, I'm very proud of the detectives on the case. Detective Sheldon did an amazing job working the case tirelessly for over a week to identify these people and locate the suspect vehicle. And ultimately, I think we prevented further robberies from occurring. So here's some pictures of surveillance footage that was taken in our 7-Eleven. I can tell you preliminarily, some of the items that were involved in this robbery we were able to locate during the search warrant. So we are fairly confident that we have the right people that were responsible. Here's a picture of the scene where the shooting occurred. You can see the suspect vehicle is the one with the white vehicle with the doors open. And as you can see, you can see Detective Sheldon's truck just above that. Like I said, these guys did an amazing job. I think Ogden PD did an amazing job. We're glad that all of our officers are safe and that our officers came home to their families. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, the other guy is identified, we'll just wait back to some clarification.
Did you see how I didn't release that? I let the guy working the case release it? This is a picture of the suspect that was shot and killed in Ogden, Anthony Cortez. He had basically, recently, before the shooting occurred, had told his friends that he did not want to go back to a holding facility. He had been recently released from a juvenile facility and almost bragged to his friends that if he had any encounters with law enforcement, that it would not end well. So, do you guys have any questions about a busy November?
Really?
You know what, December, no, I'm gonna knock on wood. Right now, it's going well.
I am wondering about our porch pirates and packages. Last year we had low, because of the status quo,
So, I haven't seen an increase. I know that we've had a couple packages that have been stolen, but I don't think it's near as bad as it was last year. And I think part of that is because when people are calling and asking about the Santa Squad, we're making sure we're giving them tips to how they can handle their packages. I mean, little things as simple as just letting a neighbor that you trust, hey, all you have to do is tell them, it's okay to take a package off my porch. I think a lot of neighbors are like, I don't want to intrude. So things like that, we've also shared some information in our city newsletter about contacting UPS, USPS, FedEx, things like that. They have holding facilities where they'll hold your package up to 24 hours so you can come get it. So I think that's also helped in the reduction of the porch thefts.
My daughter got hit this week. They had a porch camera, but the guy recommended that he was coming up and put his hand up and covered up the camera, he took stuff off.
And like I said, I've told you guys before, if people ask you about this type of stuff, these video doorbells increase our chances of catching and convicting these people that are taking the packages tremendously. A lot of times when a package is taken, you know, we do the area canvas, we talk to the neighbors, but most of the time, we don't get very much information. So if you have that extra $150 to spend, I can tell you that the electronic doorbells with the videos in them are making our life easier, so spread the word.
The glitter bomb is good.
I just saw that
Oh, that's
today.
today too.
Did you see
I
that?
wouldn't suggest that one.
I would not suggest that,
No.
but I have seen the
That
video.
was hilarious.
You know, and, you know, just make sure, I would just wanna remind the public, you know, although we make light of getting that sweet revenge a little bit, we would hate to instigate something that was a violent encounter. So please, if you are a victim of theft, please call us and let us be the ones that be able to deal with those
Just a
people.
picture.
No vigilance.
But the glitter bomb was funny.
I was, and I love that you videoed it, and then, you know, shared those reactions.
Well, and the sad thing is how many videos that you would be able to make in such a short time because of how many people are thieves.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
that's all I have.
Okay, any questions for Adam?
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks a lot, appreciate it. Thanks, Sheldon, for all your work too. Great job. Item number 9, council kudos. Julie, you
So,
know.
we have nominated someone, but they were unable to attend tonight, so we are going to postpone that and award those in January.
Okay, sounds great. Okay, item number 10, public hearing proposed to, look at the proposed update to the general plan. Jim, do you want me to turn the time over to you to give some information, and then we'll go to the next one?
Yeah. You know, we spent now the better part of the year working on this, general plan, update, where we were updating several of the elements within the general plan. It's involved, focus, group meetings, a survey, to gauge, you know, residents', feeling and inputs on, different issues, meetings with our advisory committee. And then in the last month, the planning commission has, worked on the draft that they've, recommended to the city council. I know the city council has received some of the previous drafts. Planning commission last Tuesday, made some final revisions, to the draft that they're recommending to the city council tonight. Some of those are just, minor, changes that, that's finding the memo that you received. One of them was, a little more major, in the previous draft, we had looked at, including, multifamily housing in the community. Previous draft had kind of taken a look at emphasizing that type of development more in the, northwest quadrant of the city, kind of the undeveloped area out towards Redwood Road and Fifth South, that we used, with other land uses, and kind of make the transition, from the, existing residential core of the city. After quite lively and, discussion, last week with the planning commission, they made a modification to that, in, which, they wanted to place in there, and it's in the draft we're proposing to you, that, some of that multifamily, development would be handled as infill in our existing, developed, area neighborhoods, here in the city.
Well, where is that at? I looked through and tried to find it, And I saw it was between page 2 and 20 or something, and.
Well, it's 2-20.
Oh, 2-20. I was like, holy cow, that's a long explanation of what we're doing.
18 pages change.
So, what page in our PDF? Cause I.
Yeah, if you go to page 2-20, in fact, they retitled it, in the previous drafts, you may have seen,
I just have 189 pages of
Page
it.
41.
Yeah,
Well, it's page 41 out of 117 is the one that's for 2-20 on the website.
right,
Oh,
so,
that's
so if
in
you,
it. So,
so, yeah, if you go to the draft, it's there towards the beginning in the land use, chapter 2, land use and community development section. In the first few pages, you know, it talks about the existing land use and different things, and then as you get back closer here to 2-20, it starts talking about the future land use and development of the community.
okay, I was in the wrong document.
Oh, that's right, well, yeah, you had an appendices too, which is a rather large document.
That's where I was in, okay.
Okay. But no, this is in the main general park section, and on 2-20, they titled, you'll see a heading called Encourage Well-Designed Infill Projects. And what that says is to provide a diversity of housing, small lot homes, and multifamily unit types as described below. And then there's some photographs as examples of what we're thinking of here. And it goes on to say that multifamily unit types should have sufficient space between units and should not appear to be one continuous row. This can be achieved by mixing these housing types and creating a variation in style, color, height. Plans for new development within existing neighborhoods should be carefully reviewed to ensure styles and configurations fit within the neighborhood's existing fabric, and they are in scale that does not compromise the integrity of the neighborhood. That's a change from before. Before, what it was saying was, yeah, we have some infill properties within the existing neighborhoods of the city. The previous draft had mentioned that those should be looked at as opportunities to provide smaller lots, detached single-family housing. And here it's saying, well, we also should look at it as an opportunity to put in multi-family type units as an infill element in the neighborhood.
Okay.
And so that's kind of the change of what they had.
We're having a hard time getting that document open, Mayor and I. So I don't know if you can show it to us on our screen?
I don't know if I guess I could pass my book around and you can see that. I don't
My
have it.
only question about it is, in reading what, most of the feedback was in the voting on, you know, the types of housing that people like and didn't like, the majority was those small homes on smaller lots.
Mm-hmm.
So this kind of goes against what that majority of our residents and feedback and panels had given us.
Yes, in fact, that was kind of discussed last week in planning commission. That did come up, that, in survey, results and a few of those things, it was more like how you were speaking. In fact, we have with us tonight, Mark and Jenny from Landmark Design. They're the consultants that assisted in putting this plan together. And, in fact, they have a short presentation to maybe introduce you to it and talk about the survey a little bit, and some of those things that, contributed to kind of the makeup of the proposed general plan. So, I think it might be well if we allow them to do that presentation a moment, run through this PowerPoint with you, and it may answer some of your questions, and shed some light maybe on further discussion, with the draft that you have.
It's good to be here for this, general presentation.
Oh.
Okay.
All right.
Jenny, what's your last name?
Cato, Jenny Cato, Mark is 9.
Okay.
And I just want to start out by saying we, are the consultants for the project, but we also had, sub-consultants that helped us, Y2 Analytics, conducted the Disney Ballot survey, and then, Lewis Young, Burnham, Robertson, or Robertson, Burnham, LYRB, did the housing element and the, demographics. So I just wanted to start out with, kind of going over what we were tasked to do, the process for this, and that was to do a review and analysis of the existing plan. This is an update for a plan, the general plan that was, done 15 years ago, and has had a bunch of updates, throughout the years. And then a big component of it was doing public involvement and outreach, to get a better sense of what the community wants today, so that we can update and get the vision captured. And then use all that information to develop alternatives and propose modifications for specific identified focus areas that we were asked to focus on, and that was to evaluate the northwest quadrant, look at multifamily housing, urban infill, and redevelopment, create a vision and goals for the Fifth West corridor, and then review the affordable housing element, and revise that, which is a state requirement. And those were all refined into alternatives, and we created this draft general plan update, which is what you're looking at today, several revisions. So just quickly to go over what the public involvement and outreach involved. It was a pretty comprehensive process that involved statistically valid survey, which we'll talk more about in a minute. Focus group interviews and a public open house when we had some concepts for them to review. And this was pretty key to establishing and getting a sense of what the community wants and the vision for the city. We also had a plan advisory committee that was made up of members of the council, planning commission, the mayor, and other members of the community, developers, and just lay people, which we consulted throughout the process and got feedback as we moved through the process. It was really an important part. And so I'm going to quickly go through the highlights of the statistically valid survey. There's what you call a top line results that will give you much more in-depth information, but this is just the highlights. And for the sake of time, like I said, Y2 Analytics conducted the survey, and the important part is that the survey is a statistically valid survey, that it has the correct margin of error, and they got enough responses to make it representative, that it's representative of your community. Quality of life, according to the survey, is high in Woods Cross, a lot higher than we see in lots of communities that we work in. You can see that 82% of the people they rated it 82 on a scale of 0 to 100. So the majority of the respondents rate their quality of life over 75. And the top 3 reasons that people have chosen to live in Woods Cross is good neighbors and people, safe neighborhoods, and easy access to I-15. asked what the most important issue facing Woods Cross today, growth was overwhelmingly the top answer. And then when we look closer at quality of life and other issues, the best aspects of the community were the parks and open spaces, the atmosphere, the trails, and the parts that were kind of need some help are activities and entertainment, restaurants and dining options, and retail and shopping options. And that's kind of supported in this next question where we ask, what kind of businesses are missing in Woods Cross, and that you can see at the top were restaurants and retailers once again. So when we specifically asked about commercial development and if it were to increase in Woods Cross, most people would like to see locally owned shops and small businesses over big box and retailers, about 2/3. And then where that commercial development might locate, 2/3 said in the northwest quadrant, which makes sense because there's the most open and vacant land in that area. As was mentioned, multifamily housing is kind of a hot topic, and so we asked a few questions about that. When we asked people whether they would choose multifamily housing developments with amenities such as parks and trails, or traditional single-family housing without those amenities, still people, 85% chose the traditional single-family housing. And then when we asked a question about where people would want to locate multifamily housing, 54% said that they didn't want to see it at all. You can see that the two locations where that were most cited of where it should go. One being the northwest quadrant again. So we did ask a question about if multifamily housing was to be put in their neighborhood, how would they feel about it? And nearly a half had a very negative response. And then the reaction, the kind of follow-up questions to that of why they felt that way, is they were concerned that Woods Cross would be overcrowded, that it would increase traffic, and that multifamily residents are too transient. Those are the top 3 answers. And then as part of the survey, we did a little bit of a visual preference to get a sense of, maybe what people visually didn't like or liked. And these images were both single family and multifamily images, and as you can see, the top 4 were all single family images, and the bottom 4 were all multi-family housing images. So that's a quick summary of the survey. We also did focus groups. We worked with 3 different focus groups in May and June of this year. One included former planning commission, city council, and mayors, another citizens, developers, and landowners, and then the third business owners along the West corridor. So just to summarize, the key topics and ideas that we heard at those meetings were about city beautification, paying attention to entryways into the city, upkeep of public places, residential properties, and code enforcement, and developing standards for aesthetics, such as design guidelines. As far as multi-family housing goes, there's a lot of talk about smaller complexes being more palatable than larger. The idea of patio homes, single level, no basement, providing good options for seniors in the community, housing options, and then just this, once again, increased traffic being concerned with the larger complexes. Pedestrian safety and connectivity was was brought up, that many areas need sidewalks and just safer, connections within the community. We had a discussion about just adequate resources for growth, whether or not they were here, infrastructure and transit. Can you support future growth? Commercial development, it's not unusual that people want to see an increase in a tax base, and there was a feeling that this West could help with this, and it would improve. And then the heart of the city, we had a discussion about that is currently right here, but it would be nice to have other open gathering spaces throughout the city. And then specifically for the Fifth West Commercial Corridor, we use that focus group meeting today to generate guiding principles for the concepts that we developed. This is just kind of a summary of that, and I'll introduce those concepts later. So we also did the public open house. We had, and that was in late June, we had 27 attendees, and we had a pretty good discussion about the moderate income housing. We presented the housing element, and then also different housing types, kind of a more in-depth visual preference survey to try to get a better sense of what multi-family housing might work in your community. And then we also presented the Fifth West Commercial Corridor concept at that meeting. As far as the visual preference went, we presented 4 groups of photos for small lot homes, duplex, triplexes, and fourplexes, green court and pocket neighborhoods, and then townhouses. And this is kind of a snapshot of the results of the top most liked, which the majority are the small lot houses. There is 1 duplex in there as well. And then the top least liked, which were, you can kind of see here, it's mostly townhouses, anything that kind of has a sense of being a row or continuous looking. So what we were really looking for is, or focused on, was trying to look at those housing types that we call the missing middle, which is in between single family homes and those large apartment complexes that we sincerely heard not like. So we were trying to gauge, what might fit best here in Woods Cross. So I'm going to quickly go through the draft plan elements. Since this is an update, we didn't redo everything, but what we did is highlighted in blue here. We redid the introduction and background, the land use and community development chapter, and the housing chapter. And then we, in an effort to make this document all work together and well, we reformatted the transportation chapter and added footnotes for things that have been updated since the last plan, and then we did the same with the public facilities chapter. And as I mentioned, there were several updates that happened throughout the year. We removed those, but incorporated them into chapter 2 and included them in the appendix in their full form. All in the hope of making this a more concise and easy to use document for you as we move forward. So for the introduction and background, that describes past planning efforts, a brief history of the city, areas of focus and current demographics, an overview of the public involvement, which I just shared with you, and then establishes a vision for the city, which I'm just going to quickly read, which is to preserve the qualities that contribute to high quality of life, good neighbors, easy access to I-15 in the Salt Lake area, good recreation opportunities and feeling safe, minimize the impact of growth, including an increase in traffic, transit, and crime, support economic economic well-roundedness, encourage locally owned businesses and uses currently missing within the city, respect existing recreation opportunities while designing greater inner-city pedestrian trail connectivity. And hopefully you can see how that really came from like the feedback that we received from all the public involvement. So the chapter 2 is where the meat of the changes occurred. What we did here was updated the existing land use and zoning, and then illustrated the future land use concepts that we developed and vetted through the public process and with our plan advisory committee and staff. And then an updated future land use map and key descriptions for the three of the focus areas, the northwest quadrant, the multifamily housing, and the west corridor. So here's the future land use map. The key changes to this are the adjustments of the northwest quadrant. That's really kind of the focus, where the most undeveloped land is in the city, and where the potential annexation of land could happen. And as you can see that in that area, the intersection of Fifth South and Redwood Road, there's a regional commercial core with, which would be the kind of where the destinations are. It has an urban fill and medium to large commercial uses. And then surrounding that regional commercial core is a community commercial area, which would support neighborhood needs, smaller to medium retail and business offices and things like that. And then as you go out further, you have community residential transition, which are small districts and neighborhoods, which are have a mix of commercial and residential, and also a mix of residential type, which can be combined in a building or just in a development. And all this is meant to make this, this is kind of an opportunity to have a really great entrance to your city on the west side. So all of the descriptions that go along with this support that. I'm just gonna kind of quickly summarize the concepts behind the northwest quadrant, and that's that it should integrate, an integration between Fifth South and the Redwood Road corridors. It's kind of an important crossroad, and it should be utilized to the greatest degree possible. The Legacy intersection is the primary destination. The city envisions it to be a unique place, and this is a way to unify it. And as the person passes through the intersection, they should know that it's a special place that they've arrived at, and that they want to stop and explore it. Like I mentioned, there's regional commercial that's located at the intersection, and then it's surrounded by community commercial, and then those commercial areas carefully transition to residential areas. And the intention of that is that those often bump up next to existing residential, and it's important to buffer and transition into those existing spaces. And then this area will also include buffers and transitions between future uses of the surrounding landscape. And then just a respect for the landscape that's out there. It's a unique landscape. The Great Salt Lake shoreline environment should be kind of an inspiration and respected as this area develops. So as part of this chapter, there are these descriptions for each of these areas, and I'm not going to go into all of them, but each of them have an urban design concept at the bottom. There are images that try to give you a sense and a flair of what each of these areas should be, and hopefully set you up so you can incorporate those into zoning ordinances so that you can get the look and feel of a place that's unique and special, like I mentioned. Then we'll move on to the diversity of housing section. And what we kind of got out of that were our three main points. So first being to focus on the northwest quadrant, that this is kind of a good location to locate multifamily housing, and just housing in general. And then this idea of thinking small, the missing middle types that are most accessible are these, small lot homes, and then you have townhomes and such, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, that look a lot like single-family homes that are not continuous, but have a lot of diversity and can fit well into your existing community. And we've included images for all those to try to give you a sense of what was most liked and accepted as we went to the public. And then there's the third topic, which Tim mentioned has had a little bit of back and forth, and which we call Encourage Well Design Infill Project. And as he mentioned, it started out with just these small lot homes and has kind of moved a little bit into the multifamily. And I think that the key discussion that came out of the planning commission was that they were looking for getting multifamily and diversity throughout the community rather than locating it just in one spot, like just in the northwest quadrant, and that's kind of the reasoning behind that. But the key here is that whatever is done, it needs to be carefully done and be sensitive to the existing framework, and that's the key point in that section is that it really needs to respect the surroundings and be carefully reviewed. So then I'll move on to the Fifth West Commercial Corridor. There are three different options. So when the right developer comes along, that you're ready for whatever that developer's looking to do. The options focus on the north end of the Fifth West Corridor. We felt like that was the area that could use the most help, and basically the common elements in all three of those concepts are to implement a unified streetscape, encourage quality infill, explore the redevelopment and relocations of the residential uses in that area, and then just improve the internal street network. So those are kind of the unifying themes through all of them, in a hope to make that area more easier to use and more vibrant and appealing. And then there's an urban design section. This isn't too different from what has happened in the past, but we heard once again that there's still a desire to have this beautification, that people would like to see that happen. So we kind of revamped it a little bit, and still address the city and nature interface, streetscape enhancements, buffers, entrance, transitions, and gateway enhancements and landmarks. And there have been a lot of projects implemented as far as the streetscape enhancements goes, as new projects have gone in since the last general plan update. And so the focus of this is to look at the existing streetscapes and looking at retrofitting in some of your older areas. And then we have the typical, or I should say typical, the ongoing challenge of what's crossing that you're having some uses that are tricky next to each other, and looking at getting landscape buffers and screens in those areas. And then, just the gateway enhancements and landmarks, we revamped where those might be, and then got some images together, and then also a key component is you've had a lot of different, iterations of, and ideas over the years, and we pulled all of those together here so that they're all in one place so that you don't forget them, the work that's been done. So, here's a sample of some of those, and they're all, now incorporated into chapter 2. So, the last, element that was updated is the housing element. And as I mentioned, the state requires that the moderate income housing, there be a plan for moderate income housing, and that, plan or requirement asks for 5 things, and that's that the cities, that their information about the city's supply of moderate income housing, the future needs for moderate income housing, a survey of residential land use, an evaluation of how zoning affects moderate income housing opportunities, and a description of how the city supports moderate income housing. So I'm going to just quickly go over what, because that chapter is pretty meaty. I'll quickly go over how that chapter satisfies those requirements. And first of all, the city's supply of homes, to give you a sense of it, of homes sold, 63.7% of the homes sold in 2016 fell within the 60 to 80% of AMI. And the moderate income housing is looking at 80% of AMI, which is the adjusted median gross income per household. And then 6.1% of homes sold in 2015 would have been affordable to households under 60%. So that kind of gives you a sense that there's a real drop off after that 60%. And then as far as homes rented, 59% were affordable, and to that 80% of the AMI group. And then 47% of residential units were affordable to households with 63%. So, and then it gets worse as you go down. So then we have, as far as the second one goes, the future needs of moderate income housing. While home prices appear competitive in the current market, rapid price increases have been dominant in recent months. The rise in house prices could be problematic in future affordability, and we'll look a little more closely at that at the end here. As far as the survey of residential land use goes, most of the residential land use properties zoned in R18, 8,000 square feet per lot. The minimum cost of building a home, and that's just like a one level basic home in that zone, is about 161,000. And then, but this is well in the range of affordability for houses earning 80% of the AMI, which would be the maximum home price for that group would be $275,000. And then as far as an evaluation of how zoning affects moderate income housing opportunities, Woodcroft generally provides a range of densities with the option of doing a PUD as if it's approved. And then some minor changes could help in the existing zoning ordinances, such as loosening restrictions in some zones, increasing densities in selected zones, allowing for smaller lots, allowing for certain mixed uses, and implementing uniform-based codes. And then the last section is how the city supports moderate income housing. The city currently meets the requirements for moderate income housing affordability as defined by the code. You can see there's a $38,000 difference at this point. And then But as mentioned, housing affordability in the future is a little, the trends are saying that that might not continue. This is kind of a chart showing that the city, Davis County, Utah, has seen a decrease in affordability over the last 7 years. And then this graphic shows that although housing in the city is currently affordable, that you might need to take measures in the future to ensure that that continues. You can see the blue line is median income, and that it will not, it hasn't been increasing at the same rate as home prices. So there's a widening gap, in that realm. So, just in summary, there's a few recommendations, as part of that element, and that's look at the city looks at promoting ownership opportunities for low and moderate income families, maintaining a reasonable stock of rental housing, preserving and rehabilitating current housing stock, and providing housing assistance for elderly, disabled, and homeless populations, and then just adjusting zoning to eliminate any regulatory barriers for developers that are seeking to meet affordability targets. So that sounds like what we worked on as part of this general plan update.
Okay, thanks.
Not a lot.
Jim?
Yeah.
All right, so that kind of brings us back to where we left off, with this discussion with the planning commission, recommendation. As Jenny was saying, essentially, with the affordable housing study, as you can see there, it says we're meeting it. The consultant that put it together says we're just ahead of the curve, just barely there. And the reality of the housing market that we are in, that's rapidly changing. And they said to us that you could rapidly find yourself behind the curve. And so, even though it says that we're meeting low and moderate income requirements of the state, the plan still is recommending the inclusion of multifamily housing and affordable housing so that we don't find ourselves within just a short time behind the curve. And so then the question comes, where as a community do we want that? And the planning commission draft you have is recommending that that be more interwoven into the fabric of the community than placed out in the developing frontier, last frontier of the city of the Northwest Quadrant. So that's what you have before you tonight.
So what happens to a community, a city like ours, if in the future we don't meet that requirement?
Well, I think the legislature is going to put more teeth into it, than that there's been in the past. They may, put some penalties in if you're seeking state funding or grants for different things, if you're not making a concerted effort an attempt to, provide affordable housing, it would be penalized that way. And I don't think we may be seeing more in the coming years if the trends in affordability continues on the line of public.
So affordability doesn't necessarily mean we have to provide apartments, though. It's just a wide variety of options, correct?
That's correct, and of course, one of the more affordable, housing products would tend to be, attached housing or townhomes and those types of things versus, single family homes, that sit on their own parcel of land and, single ownership or house and land.
I think it is important to note too, the planning commission isn't saying don't put any apartments in the Northwest Quadrant. That's still a very valid place, and if you're going to allow the complex to go in, that's where it's gonna be. That makes sense, but I don't think I think, as I listened to them discuss this for hours, it is not, I mean, if somebody wanted a little fourplex in the neighborhood and there's room, that's not such a bad thing. Most of the growth will still happen in that northwest quadrant, but it will be possibly little fourplexes, a duplex here or there. In my opinion, mother-in-law apartment type thing, spread throughout, you'll still help get to your numbers, but I don't think it's fair to say, from here on out, all multifamily, you gotta go there. I mean, just,
Right.
we're still in the whole city, except for this little corner.
My concern is, you know, we have some property down on 1500 South that's being sold, it's like 3 acres. And I don't wanna see someone come in and put, you know, a 5-story apartment building in between all of these existing homes and their farming property that surrounds it. That's what my concern is, you know, because that's really the drive of a lot of developers right now. They're gonna make their money building those high-density apartments. And it's interesting looking at, you know, the survey results that you've provided, that only 6% of even the younger generation want to live in that. So I found that really interesting that it's, you know, we're being told, oh no, you want this, you gotta have it. But then when they ask the people who they're saying want it, the numbers aren't there, it's not supporting.
And I don't think anybody wants a 5-story apartment complex on that part.
And I wanna make sure that we don't end up with what we had
Right.
happen before.
Right, and that's the thing we gotta make sure when we get to the ordinances that it's very tight.
And clear.
But if there was a cute little senior living thing that they're gonna put 10 houses in there,
No, that's
then that's
different
different.
neighborhood, yeah.
Right, in the neighborhood it fits, and that's how come in the discussion, it was clear that they said, well, I can't remember the wording they used, but well thought out, that meets the neighborhood. It doesn't change the appearance of the neighborhood, but a small sixplex in an area, I think that adds to the neighborhood if it fits. Nobody wants a 5-story, I'm not sure we want 5 stories in the northwest quadrant either. But I think we need to look at what they're trying to suggest as well, is small.
And that's why I wanted to ask you, like, help us understand why they changed it, because you were there, so.
Because I think originally it was all growth goes to the northwest corner, that's the only place that you can build a duplex. And I don't know if that's necessarily the bill that we wanna spend, is if it's appropriate, and to put a good-looking duplex next to your house, that doesn't diminish your house. I mean, if it fits, if the lot size allowed a duplex or something like that, we need to have an opening that would allow that without saying, next to your house, we're gonna put a 5-story that goes straight up and it's still just on a 1,000 square
Yeah,
foot
like
lot.
what's it, Orchard Lane, you know, that.
Right,
you know,
just
those
boom,
little
it's
homes
there.
and the-
I
Yeah,
mean, exactly.
So perfect example, Joel tore down Grandma Park's house. You got a vacant lot there.
yeah, and he wants to build a.
He wants to build a duplex right there. Well, right now, under our ordinances, you can't do that.
Okay.
It's not zoned for that. But how much difference would that make in our neighborhood?
Right.
To have a really nice duplex between Guns and Parks, you know what I'm saying? I think it would fit, but right now, we don't allow that.
Yeah.
And that duplex would help in solving some of our issues.
Or affordable housing, yeah.
Exactly.
But some of the things to understand though is, as you look through there, and they're showing the housing types, and they talk about duplexes, fourplexes, and townhomes that have a mass and a roof line and that relate to the surrounding neighborhoods. In some ways, it was this project across the street, kind of fits that vision, but it was not well received, to keep in mind, so.
Well, even the duplex on that lot, has not been well received. I mean, just the neighbors that I heard of, so.
Can you go back to the
But
housing chart?
The housing chart? water.
What do you compare to other cities? The ratio,
Income.
ratio.
Where you have a ratio between the different cities, it would be one.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right there.
Is that the one you were talking
Is
about?
that the one?
Can you increase the font on that, Mr. Stevens? We haven't, I haven't been able to see a damn thing back there. The print's so tiny, and then they put white print on dark background.
If it makes you feel any better, we can't read it on our monitors either.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when we get some new screens, Gary.
Oh, what did we say?
You can, I heard that a year ago.
Mayor, if I'm right, we've got a public hearing on this, right?
Yeah.
And I certainly have one question.
Will this be online, so we can look at it later?
I just was wondering that your.
It is online, if you go to woodscross.com, there's a link there to, the general plan update page, and you can, bring it up.
Well,
Thank you, thank you.
We had a couple of hearings at planning commission, so, a lot of, if they were there, they observed, you could see there's a lot of things about it. But I'd like to hear what they have to say.
Okay, so, Tim, you feel comfortable that we've explained this enough that we can open the public hearing now?
I believe so.
Okay. So, I will call for a motion then, that we open a public hearing to talk about the proposed update to the general plan.
Motion. It's just a.
Number 10 is public hearing. Okay. So, no motion is required. I guess I have the power to just open the public hearing and not get yelled at.
I support you in that, Mayor.
So we are now in the public hearing, and if you come forward, please state your name and your address for the record. And Spend, be kind. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, so you need to use my professional title.
Yeah.
Spencer McBride, 1263 South, 875 West, Woods Cross, Utah. First thing, so I attended actually my first planning commission, about a month ago, and I just want to say as a citizen, I'm very impressed with our commission. They appear very dutiful and thorough in their consideration. They listened to all and genuinely considered all opinions, even if those opinions weren't popular. I, for one, agree with the revisions that have been made. I think multi-family housing is essential. I get that it's unpopular, but it's essential for healthy communities. We need diversity of all types, and that comes with multi-family housing. But I like the responsible approach that the Planning Commission is suggesting, of smaller scale, both in terms of ideally not going above 2 stories, but also a limited number of units. And as a citizen of Woods Cross, if you ask me to point to an example of successful accommodation within the community of multi-family housing, to the apartments just off 1500 South before you cross the train tracks. So I guess between 800 West and 875 West. So there's 3 buildings, 12 total units. Each unit has, I believe, at least 1 dedicated covered parking space with a dedicated storage unit, and then there's additional parking there. As a homeowner in the neighborhood just adjacent to this complex, I know at least 8, if not 9 or 10 of the residents. I interact with them. It is integrated into our community. Part of that is through the church, the LDS church, but even beyond that, I look at that, and aesthetically, I know that those 3 buildings maybe aren't the most modern looking. They're somewhat plain in their aesthetic design, but I think in terms of scale and thoughtful design and incorporation into neighborhoods, I think personally that they provide a very valuable model.
Just one comment on that, I don't mean to interrupt, but I know 4 people who came to this community, rented an apartment, ended up buying a home, and staying in Woods Cross. So it was kind of an integral part of the stepping place where they couldn't save their money, was able to buy a home.
And absolutely, and part of what was worried about when the initial, kind of public outcry against what was essentially going to be apartments, but now townhomes, which I'm not a fan of that scale. But it kind of, this public discourse at times devolved into homeowner versus renter. And even the homeowner with the absolute worst yard on my street complains about community and property values. But I see it, we need this in our community. We need people to have access to our community. But I also agree with the planning commission's proposal that we don't create the northwest quadrant as this, nothing but or primarily multifamily housing. It needs to be incorporated in the scale. And, so I know this is somewhat long-winded, but I'll just say that, one, I think the planning commission should be commended for their work on this. And two, as a citizen, I may just be one, but I'm in favor of the revisions that they made.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments. Feel free to come forward and state your opinion. Welcome back, Lacey.
Thank you. Lacey Weeks, Westwood Village, 28 West Main Way. I have bought a house in a long time, but the average house was like $285,000 for, the average house, median, yeah. Doesn't that mean you have a house payment of about $2,800 and something a month? Is that what that means? No, what would your house payment be?
Would be under 1,500 on a 30-year, I would think.
I'm 280.
You've got 285,000 as the median.
285, speaking from experience, is about 1,300 before tax.
1,300? You know what, I think I better move because I can't afford that.
Well, you're lucky you bought when you did. Which, so am I. I'm lucky I bought when I did, considering the market that we've got now.
Yeah, I only paid $30,000 for my company little trailer on a tiny piece of dirt. But I had to pay $600 this year for that tiny piece of dirt.
Yeah.
Guess what I paid for 70 acres up in Idaho?
$600.
$15. $15. Anyway, almost embarrassing when you go to your taxes up there. Some things I didn't hear anything in here. I didn't hear anything about air quality. That's not appropriate in a study like this. The effects of the transportation on air quality, I didn't hear anything about that. It's not supposed to be one of these kind of studies.
I think it would be hard to quantify, and we would just tie increased traffic and transportation as the problem cause.
Well, since ugly little Westwood is sitting in the middle of your northwest quadrant, I'm wondering what you foresee for Westwood. But it doesn't fit the nice little pictures there that you have, so we're already
Well,
ugly sight of your little plan.
Yeah, it's an existing use, so.
It'll stay.
What's that? It'll stay unless all of the property owners decide to get together and sell.
Well, what was interesting to me was preserve and rehabilitate. Do you have any plans to rehabilitate Westwood?
Not right now.
We're just gonna stay this ugly little thing in the middle of the plan?
It is what it is.
Well, I'm here to tell you folks, we do not have the money to fix those roads. You already know that, and that's coming.
Well, that's the
So
problem.
Rick, what do you guys plan to do with that?
That's not our problem.
That's not our
It's
problem,
not your problem?
because it's a PUD, right?
Well, what happened to your, rehabilitate and restore that was in there? Preserve and rehabilitate, doesn't fit under that? Not gonna do anything to help it?
I don't know if legally we can we, Gary?
Well, you can declare it a blighted zone, which is what it's gonna be when we can't repair the road. So I can tell you the people in there do not have the kind of money to repair the road. If you put a lien on their property, they're just gonna default and lose the home, so you're gonna have a bunch of vacant trailers down there. And you know what kind of a problem that is. So, I don't foresee good things coming for Westwood, no matter what you do down with the northwest quadrant. And I've also read that that there's a possibility, and I don't know these laws very well, but if you have a certain number of minorities living in an area, it's really, really hard to declare it blighted or to get the people to move.
I don't think that has anything to do with it.
There's a law about a certain number of minorities living in an area, and I don't have it memorized, I can't tell you the details, but I have read it. So, anyway, let's hope we can come up with a good plan for Western.
Anyone else, LeGrand?
LeGrand Lackley, 1985 South, 800 West. I just want to remind you of what you're talking about here, the infield. We've had that for several years now. Just north of Rick's house, you go down that street, you'll pass about 3, maybe 4 duplexes, and you won't even read, unless you look hard, they don't look like duplexes.
Yeah.
Down here on 925 West, if you go down from about 17th to 22nd, there's 3 or 4 more small duplexes. Unless you look real close, you won't notice they're duplexes. That's the type of infield I think they're speaking of, is something very innocuous. You're not gonna notice, it's not gonna jump out at you, it's just gonna blend in. And I think that's great, because there's a lot of your children who are gonna want to live in Woods Cross, and if we don't have something they can afford, you're gonna have to go visit them in.
Sheridan, Wyoming.
Yeah.
The same thing. I know.
Just keep in mind, when we're talking infield, we're not talking about monsters,
Like this.
McMansions or anything else. We're talking about something that looks like your house, maybe just a little bit bigger, because it's 2 houses. It's not a new concept, and we've had it here for years. It's been working. And I don't see why, if we pay a little more attention to it and can do a few more, it just can't help but, be something good for my grandkids and your kids. I have a grandson right now who's looking for a place to buy, and he can't find anything that he can afford. If we had some of these little houses, he'd jump on it and then. So we should keep that in mind, that, some of these minimum, what is it called, yeah, that's our children and our grandchildren. And we should keep that in mind.
Thanks, LeGrand.
I know Bonnie, as we sat here in planning commission, she reminded us of the 1700 South, 11th West. There's an apartment, there's a townhome little village or whatever. And she said, you just love those people and that's never been a blight. There's a lot of little houses in there, but again, if you're driving down, maybe you don't take a Jeep. I'm going through little Chicago, that was a thing that 30 years ago was done right. They're tight in there, but it's not a blight. Yeah.
And I guess the question would be, what makes the difference between that and Little Chicago? And I don't know. Ownership.
A lot of that is.
Same thing here with Hamilton's fourplexes, ownership. You got the right owner that has cared in the property for 30 years and has taken good care of it. And if you don't have that owner, then I think that's where the problems start to come. You have someone that tries to milk the property for as much money as they can get out of it, and don't put anything back into it, and that's not been the case with Hamilton. Hamilton's taken great care of that project. And, I don't know, that's one of my biggest heartburns with it, is you can't control who owns it, and how they're gonna treat it over time. And because really, I think that's the difference between this piece of property and the one on 1900 South versus a couple of others that we have in the community.
Well, even those on 1900 South, when that brought up, are those individually owned condos?
They are.
Because I know, 2 people that live down there, one of them just moved in there, single mom with
Well, my
3
house is
teenage
right,
children.
it's young enough to go.
When you upgraded Little Chicago some years back, made it much nicer, those people moved into Westwood.
talking about two different types of ownership here on here. We're talking about individual owners, and then you're talking about a good landlord owner
Correct.
that cares for the property.
And you can't control either one of them.
Well,
You can't control who's gonna buy a property and what they're gonna do with it.
and I don't know how successful they are, but some communities have attempted to do, you know, like a good landlord program where there's carrots and sticks, but I don't know how effective those are.
And the affordable housing folks would have to not do that. Because the people that need the affordable housing are the folks that have felonies, and the folks that have those charges against them that can't get into them in a good landlord program. And I know that through my work, because we have a whole bunch of units that we own, and communities would love to have us do a good landlord program, and we won't because it limits who we can put in there, and those are the people that we're designed to help. And so, and that's the struggle with it, is, yes, you can put those policies in place, but now you've eliminated a whole bunch of the people that low-income housing is meant to help.
Yeah, it's a two-edged sword.
It is.
It helps to incentivize the good landlord, but, you know, the other side of that, flip side is it's harsher on who they're gonna allow to live there, to meet that standard.
Yes.
Dan Bradford, 1394 West, 2250 South. I know that when the area west of Redwood Road around the elementary school, when that development was proposed, there were, initially a number of smaller lots and smaller houses on there. And, I think because, there was a public hearing where people said, we don't want that the city council then asked them to go back and review and change that plan. But I think that's the kind of thing that ends up being a component of affordable housing. And so, I think you have to ask ourselves, what do we want our community to look like in 10 years? What are the things that will make that happen? And then, the people, you are the ones that have the vision, and sometimes I think we can't let the public dictate what that vision should be, even though they may not want that higher density. You know, there's a whole issue with that, the higher density. Well, but then how would that have helped? I mean, that would have helped our affordable housing issue there. Plus, you know, you have the goal here is that the people, like we were talking about earlier, people coming into the community, either a smaller house or an apartment, and then they learn to love the community and say, hey, we want to stay here. But there have to be the different, the whole array of types of housing to meet that goal. And so I think, that maybe the city council could think about this when another development comes out and people say, we don't want it. Right, well, but it meets, but also when you look at it, meets the cottage house and some of those things that are in part of the plan.
Yeah, and Dan, you make a great point, that development that you're speaking about, those same people that complained about the different size lots and everything like that, when we asked them to go back and reevaluate and come back with a different plan, they complained that, hey, where's the wide sidewalk, where's the trails, where's the parks? Well, it's a give and take, right? And so if you wanna get a really nice planned community with those type of amenities, you have to have a mixture of the small lots, the large lots, the multi, dwelling, you know, type development, and you can't have it both ways. And so that's where the compromise has to come in, and it's tough sometimes when you have pitchforks and torches in the audience.
Well, being on the planning commission, we are not subject to the kind of political pressure that you're on. And I understand and appreciate that, but then, again, you know, we have goals of the general plan, and how important is the general plan end up being in reality when it comes in conflict with maybe some of the desires of the public.
Right, I agree. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Here we go, Leo. Lane's out, Chairman.
Leo Beecher, 1974, Sorrento Drive, Woods Cross, Utah, 50 years. Anything else you want to know? Social
Age of your, how was your oldest, how many grandkids?
I'm a little concerned, because of the comment from the city council regarding 5-story building apartment houses. There was nothing in the general plan proposed update that I think reflected anything like that. I'm concerned that those comments may generate an unwarranted fear in some of the members of the community. I have to commend the landmark for the methodology in the development of the plan. It would be nice if I could find something wrong with it, but I can't. But what I do think happens when you have these meetings and you have questions and answers, so here's a question and people are going to migrate to the preferred answer. Then you have another question, the same thing happens. Another question and the same thing happens. But if you take the aggregate, you might find some contradictions between what you can do with all of the preferred answers. I think the challenge of the city council is to be pragmatic in the way you look at the update. There was a very robust discussion at the last planning commission meeting. And a lot of things came out of it, and you're getting that kind of thrown at you. But I think the planning commission did their job. The general plan is a plan. It's a plan to help develop ordinances and directions for the way the city should go and develop and work. It's not something that says, this is in stone and this is the way it's gotta be and whatever. It will still come down to what the planning commission comes up with proposed ordinances, courtesy of Tim over here, and what the city council does with developing those ordinances. This is the direction the city wants to go. It's how the city wants to look. And you started talking about landowners and land developers. Those are areas that we really can't control. Right, Ryan? But we do the best we can with what we have, and hopefully it can work out. I would encourage the city council to approve the update, and let's get on with life. We can beat a dead horse if you really want to, but then it gets stinky.
Well, we're still open for the public hearing right now, so that's next on the agenda is to ask for approval.
Well, I
And we also, I just want you to know, my first time getting the revised was Friday, and so I've been trying to read it as much as I can while dealing with a family emergency.
If
So
you can't sleep at night, read it.
Well, I appreciate you understanding though that my questions are for clarification so that I can vote knowing that when I have the public come and ask me why I supported it, I have an answer. Instead of I was just told. Okay?
Mark and Jenny took offense to you.
What was that, Mike?
Mark and Jenny took offense to your comment.
Oh, about sleeping?
They think it's super exciting stuff.
Well, they can build a fine industry on that.
Thank you, Leo, appreciate that. Okay, any further comments from the council?
I do have one question. Tim, when we were first starting this out, we kind of discussed what's our goal when, like my sister was in Sugar House and they're in this stage where people are buying homes and tearing them down and building new homes, and we're gonna look at addressing that in our general plan. Is that something that was looked at? Is it something, you know?
We didn't look specifically at that, because we haven't had really that specific problem where, like you do in Sugar House, or the, Yale neighborhood and that, where people come in and tear down homes and put in monster homes and different things. the issue that maybe this addresses in some ways is kind of like what we saw over here where, yeah, they took out some old commercial and, storage units, but they also took out 4 or 5 homes as part of that project, so, yeah, that's one of the challenges of infill, is it's not always they're gonna go and pick some vacant parcel to
Right.
infill. They may be looking at opportunities to take that vacant parcel and see if they can
Well, and once
consolidate
our,
2 or 3 homes to go with it.
once we're built out in our northwest quadrant and we've developed and we're filling those in, then we are gonna start seeing that, because we do have, you know, I looked at their numbers, thank you for providing that, of the ages of the homes in our city. You know, and it's about, you know, 60% are at least 40, 50-year-old homes. Is that, I saw it here, and I mean, as we glanced quickly through, but, so eventually those are going to become, we are going to be facing this. And so I don't know if we need to be address that now, or if we wait till it comes to us and then we address it, you know, or if we wanna kind of set up a couple of guidelines, and maybe Mark,
Like,
So I think
we
we
set
could-
up our ordinances to allow, you know what I mean, in the future to deal with.
but I'm curious what, I mean, we're obviously not the only city you've done this for, so have other cities looked at that issue?
It just depends on the quality of the housing to begin with. If the housing is, lecture ground is a good example. You don't see wholesale redevelopment. A lot of the homes that were built there were quite, robust and put together well, but it just depends the status of them in the beginning. It also, I think, just depends on the demand for renewals. And I think one of the striking numbers that came out in the presentation was the fact that in order for you to sort of take on your fair share of the projected doubling of the population by 2040, you're going to, you're 7,000 people now, or 8,000, well, 11,000, you're going to be 18,000. So 7,000 new people coming into your community, it's not all going to happen in those projects, obviously. So there's going to be some changes that are happening here. It's not going to happen now, it's not probably not in the next 10 years, but in the next 30 years, there's going to be a push to find places for people to be. It's not just in your community, it's spread throughout the entire Wasatch Front. So there's going to be great pressure everywhere, and there's going to, obviously, the general plan that comes out in 10 years or 5 years when you update it again, it's going to be even more dramatic changes possibly. So I think those are the sorts of things that, yeah, that means if there's older homes that are sort of falling down, that's sort of a target. And I don't know, you know, that fits your classification here right now, but I'm the primary in South Ogden, and we have a whole lot of old, dilapidated housing that, yeah, spells it, but not in there to do something.
Yeah, we've had a few examples in the last 20 years just here on 8th West, and they tended to be homes that were older than 50 years, that were built on, you know, stone foundations, different, settling that were coming apart. A few doors this way, replaced with a new home, there's one just on the other side of the church here, that's probably been more than 20 years, and a few others along the street. And they seem to put in new housing that, you know, complements the existing housing stock that's along 800 West.
Mayor, I'm not sure where we're at in this discussion or anything, but I kind of echo Julie's sentiment that we just got this Friday night. I have been all along involved in the process. We're already quite as long as we want to be, I know, so it's kind of hard, but I would like to make a better study of the things, especially the changes that I would kind of change since I've been involved in this process. So I would, yeah, I'd like some more time, and I know in tabling it, it's gonna be a month, but maybe it needs some time for a work meeting, or even just for us to digest some of this. I appreciate the comments. It is just a general plan, and I understand that, but I additional plans to drive a lot, and we've been burned before by things that we throw out there and hope for the best. But I think we need to maybe be a little more careful and cautious because of the ramping up of growth, ramping up. And, you know, I have a little pet peeve that I won't go off on right now, but I would like to have some time to study this. If that was all right with the council, I would make a motion to table this until we have some time to study it. And I would love to listen to the, you know, the dialogue, hear from the other planning commission members, and we'll have them a call and talk to them a little bit, get their input too.
Yeah, I agree, I felt very rushed in receiving, you know, 117 page document, 190, and it's a lot. And this is my first time seeing it, I haven't been involved.
Yeah, and the planning commission, they spent a month of their meetings.
I know,
going
they
through
put
this.
a
And we had
lot
the
of
same
time.
discussion when they started, the same thing, hey, this has been a long drawn out process, but don't feel the need that we have to rush here at the very end, and so, I would think that council being able to take about the same time the planning commission.
And I don't think we need
And so
to have a study session in
I move
January.
then that we come out of public hearing,
Okay.
and then item number, address item number 11. What's that, Ben?
Can we have that slide that shows the overlay of the police reports to the plan?
Yeah, I do actually.
For the crime report,
Well, the map.
yeah,
One of the concerns that we talked about is the planning commission was, maybe a perceived notion in the public that putting in multifamily units might increase crime. And, right, it is false. We've got the police blotter, and that there are some places, predictable places where that has happened, but we have a lot of other multifamily units that, don't ever show up on the blotter. And so just as in the event that the public comes to you with this concern, that we have some data here to show that that is not a real concern.
Yeah, the planning commission asked the police department to kind of put together a map and some information that showed their hotspots, the non-related, traffic type of things, and of course the hotspots were, the New Smith, you know, the commercial, you can see the hotels, made it in the top 10 or 11, the train station, the old storage units here, and then again, some of the old, larger multifamily complexes, Springwood and, Greenleaf, yeah.
Or whatever it's called now.
Yeah, that tend to be I think it was your top 10 or 11 places that get most calls to.
that's very helpful.
So I totally agree with, Julie and Candy. I haven't been able to read the whole thing over the weekend as well, and I've been involved with it from day one, and believe me, you guys have done an excellent job, and I have no problem at all with this dragging out, because I think there's been a lot of thought put into the process, and we're getting a lot of public input, a lot of really good comments, and we're paying a lot of money to get this done, and I think we need to make sure we do it right. And the planning commission has had time to study it and look over it for the last month, since we last looked at it at our meetings, and so I think it's only fair that the council gets to review it and take their time to go through it as well.
And really, it's a document that probably is gonna last for 10 years without a major revision, so we should make sure we know what's in there and.
So,
really probably in 5 years, we probably.
yeah, 5 years, we probably have updated it.
But how long since we did it? I mean, we did the northwest quadrant here 5 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
But a total big redo of it like this was, because I was involved in the last one.
We did multiple small updates over that time, to the other one.
It was probably like,
2003.
yeah, Cause it was before it was right about the time that I came on the planning commission. I think it
Yeah.
started on the general plan for planning commission and ended with it being presented while I was on the planning commission.
I think we adopted it in 2004, and then every couple of years there was an update to it for the present time.
But one thing that we really need to be sure of is that this plan will support the more finer, little detailed ordinances that we do want to put in place. And so I think we need, this is I mean, that's the first thing design, and this is it. So now I'm kind of jumping ahead, maybe I shouldn't, but okay, implementation, that's ordinances, okay, gotta make sure that everything is in the design that we need implemented. So I would like to take some time to do that.
Okay, so
Well, the other thing the plan does for the planning commission and the council is when you have somebody come in with a big project and wants to change your ordinance, and it goes counter to what we're seeing here, that I don't think we've seen even if we do this and we put in ordinances that we want to see a certain, size and, scope and that of housing, you're gonna get the pressure from somebody to come in and say, we'd like you to amend your ordinance to accommodate this. And then this hopefully will be a better guiding principles and vision for the decision makers, when that happens.
Okay, so if you would like a motion, Mayor, I'll move that we table this item number 11 until, our next meeting at least, and propose that maybe have a working, with Tim or Ms. Dawson or something, I don't know. But anyway, the motion is just to table something.
I'll second.
have a motion, second, all in favor, Matt?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Did you get that, Annette? You got it right between the lines there, you know?
you got it,
Okay.
he's on top of it.
Thank you for all your time and work on this. It's
Great.
a great presentation, and you've given us a lot of good information. Thank you.
It's been good working with you guys, and I'm sure we're not done this time.
I know we've had our motion now. One of the things I'd like to see is maybe a little more detailed, definition and description of what an infill project is. This talks about areas where there's smaller lots, non-conforming lots, or where larger 1+ acre lots could be subdivided. Well, larger 1+ acre lots could be the Kingston property. And, or, I mean, there's some pieces like that, the piece on 1100 West here that is on the east side, down towards Fitzgerald. There's some pieces like that they can look at and say, well, this is an infill project. And so because of that, the way it's written right now, well, let's do multifamily on there. And so I would like the scope of maybe infill projects changed and defined a little more to say an infill project really is limited in scope. There might be, again, on 1500 South here, you have several agricultural properties. Well, you could view that as an infill project because it's surrounded by residential all around it. But do we really want
8 acres.
of multifamily right there because it's an infill project?
Well, there's developers right now contacting those landowners.
I'm sure there are.
And take a road off of 15th and come up the backside of the property and build homes.
Every developer right now wants to do multifamily because there's more money in multifamily than there is.
I've had one, I've been out to the area, found out what that property was, and it is the one that I asked about tonight, that the Staley property, the one that.
And they wanted to do it
They
because,
all said, oh, you know, they said that it's good for 80 apartments, and I was like, wow.
That's
It's not.
We've had a developer in looking at it with property owners, and it's, a single family R18 type of,
Okay.
subdivision they're looking at.
Okay.
Do we need to address, we've had a moratorium on, are we up against a deadline there?
I don't think so,
a moratorium on.
we're not, but I think we got a good idea
We got an excuse.
of where we wanna go with that S1. In fact, there's a little section there that even talks about, the area south of the high school, that infill piece, again,
It was already built.
well, yeah, and what the plan is saying is, part of what they wanna do is what we envision there, which is more townhome, like the 20 that were recently approved, because that relates better to the neighborhood next to it versus the 4-story apartment complexes that may be part of what they're looking at.
Okay. So, we'll look to get a work meeting together and we can discuss all these items. We still got several items on the agenda tonight.
Real quick,
We're on 11, we have to go to 24, and then we have a closed session after.
the age of housing is on page 89 of the 117 document, and then the next one on page 90 shows where that age housing is, so that'll kind of give us an idea of what, down the road, we'll be looking at as far as possible redevelopment areas.
Item number 11 on the agenda, consideration to adopt a resolution adopting the updated Woods Cross City General Plan. We've got a table of that one, so we're on 12, I'm sorry. Consideration to adopt a resolution amending the consolidated fee to increase garbage collection fee to cover a cost increase for recycling. Gary?
Yes, in the last meeting, you approved, Waste Management's request, so, we've got in the consolidated fee schedule, adjusting the garbage rate accordingly, so the price is up from 15 to 16.
Do we have a resolution number, 2018? 65. Okay. So we've already discussed this.
64.
64. Okay. One prior to that, yes.
Oh, we didn't do it, didn't we?
We're very understanding, we've all been in movies.
We're keeping an eye on toes tonight.
So I will call for a motion then to approve resolution 2018-664.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Matt?
Aye.
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 Okay, moving on to item number 13, consideration to adopt an Arbor Day declaration. Mrs. Kim?
I don't know, the Public Works Department's kind of taken this over, this thing, so I don't know.
Mark approached me about
But
it.
it's similar in the past, I guess,
We just have to do it every year.
Yeah, and we need to get better and do this in March or April rather than December. So we've got it on our particular file. I've got my able assistant, I've got that down. We're gonna make sure we do this in March or April when it's probably more appropriate rather than December.
I just think it's hilarious.
When we can do the whole and plant a tree.
When we actually do plant the tree, because we hold the celebration around Arbor Day, but then we miss the connection about having the proclamation resolved.
So we just need to get it
On
together.
this proclamation, my name is not listed under the council member, so if you could add that, I'd like to be a part of it.
Oh.
I won't take it personal at all.
How did we leave you out?
I didn't even look
Barry,
at
how
that.
can you forget me?
I didn't even look at someone else on there.
Oh, you know what we
It's
probably
behind that
did?
leaf.
Is we probably took the one from last.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
And you weren't a
Took
council
out
member, yeah. and
Oh.
we
It's
deleted
totally
it.
fine.
That's why we were short one council
Yeah.
member, so
Last December.
we will make that correction. Our profuse apologies.
Mayor, I move that we adopt resolution number 665 with the changes and edits.
I move we table this, isn't the idea?
I'm gonna move that we pass this resolution,
I thought we were going
We have a
to
second?
pass the resolution in
I'll
April.
second it.
I'll accept it right now, but that's what we were trying to do.
No, we're just gonna, next year, we're just gonna make the resolution close to the time when we actually. do
Right.
it.
No, I will.
This was for this year's April 26th.
Oh.
Yeah, it says
we get to-
2018, so
all right,
we're.
so we can.
We celebrated, now we've made it official.
Okay, aye.
We're
Yeah.
both
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
So item number 14, to approve the annual meeting schedule.
Yes, we're required by law to post our meeting schedule, so I'm letting you see it ahead of time. Basically, we're saying we're meeting on the first and third Tuesdays every month at 6:30 PM, with the exception of the meeting on January 1st.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Good, I'm so glad.
How's
There
me?
was no further discussion on that. Like in my 2 board meetings yesterday.
On the meeting schedule?
Oh,
The
it
director-
is terrible when you do.
We just think,
Okay.
completely up.
Now we're on safety.
Okay, safety and accountability report, Gary.
Nothing really major to report there, no incidents during the, month of November. The 3 teams are now, tied at 0, but there's been some things happening in December that are gonna change that.
Hey, we were promised pictures.
We were promised.
Nobody submitted them to the. Nobody has.
I'll pull them up right now.
Nobody has officially submitted it to the safety committee for their review.
That is correct.
But everyone's a 0, so it doesn't matter.
Right, but it's gonna change in
So is there a conspiracy so that all 3 teams get the gift cards?
No, that's not gonna happen. December has been a disaster for, I think, one of the teams.
Which one?
I think it's Team Scott.
But you know,
Can we get a breakdown who's on what team?
Yeah, we can do that, we've got it here.
I'd like to see get some, like, work with each
Okay.
other.
There's one out pinned on the wall.
Oh, put that on the, bulletin board, well, Jessica will make it.
I thought Frank was on your team, Jim.
No.
He's
Yeah.
on draft. Hey, Scott picked him first.
I know.
I don't get it, but.
So they bring pictures, is that what they're doing?
No, they're bringing
So you can move on.
Okay. So that brings us to item number 16, which is our second open session. So if any of our conversations have sparked any other comments from the, I was gonna say congregation, from the audience or the council? No?
Our earlier open session sparked an idea for me, the basketball hoops and farm meadows, and you said that's but I thought we were planning on putting pickleball courts in the basin down by the city office.
I voted against that.
Well, I know, but it was suggested, it was brought up by the park. So I would like to go back at that again. I'd rather see basketball hoops, even if it breaks up and we have to replace it in 10 years or something. But I'd rather have a hoop there, even if it's just dirt. You can do a hard play, whatever, then the kids have them in the streets, or I would really like to see it, make an effort to put that there. I guess I'm not buying it.
That's why we're just going by what it's doing.
I would like to see that we maybe find some funds to make that happen.
Can we take a look at that? I know we got money in the draft tax, so we could possibly do that, but
Sure.
just a small half court.
The NBA has a floating court.
There's ice underneath it.
Right, yeah, time. So, yeah, we'll just kind of put that thing on pontoons.
You know, the kids.
Someday she'll be on the gun, and someday she won't.
The kids just wanna shoot at the basket, I mean,
Yeah,
that
that's true.
you can dribble is secondary, I think we just get a couple hoops down there.
Well, if you drive through that neighborhood, there's 3 or 4 hoops that are in the street and they're.
I'd rather have them in the playground.
Well, it needs to be, I don't wanna think about the play court and
Well,
the liability of that. We need to do it right if it is possible.
Well, and I think, and I'll have a discussion with Scott, if the amount of time, I think you probably put it into place there, that the amount of time to be in the water is probably minimal.
Yeah.
So, we'll look at that. Plus, Scott did send out a letter, asking people to take their courts that are basketball bankers in the street off. So this would be a chance to be good cop, bad cop.
Yeah.
I know, so.
And I know down with pickleball, part of it wasn't just the catching, I thought it was the decantation, which is a certain amount of water is put out there and spit out, and it is the whole underwater. I still don't want the pickleball court there, but.
Yeah,
Just say, you know, I don't know.
Parking,
if that was-
bathrooms.
I just felt like I was
Yeah, it was a mess.
two different answers, depending upon who was asking the question.
Okay, we'll get that clarified.
Yeah, I would like to see us make an effort to make it, we'll work on it.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So that, the light on itself was working great, and then we had the storm and the wind, and the sensor has been moved again, so that light is not staying on, and it's backing up again. So I don't know,
So it was good, and then you're saying maybe the
I think the
storm?
wind blows it, cause you know how those light sensors are usually like looking at the lane?
Mhm.
Right now, it's looking at the on-ramp and the right lane. Which needs to be looking at the left and right lane and not the on-ramp. The on-ramp has nothing to do with the light.
Okay, that's on.
It's going, heading east down, okay, going east south.
Okay, yeah, where you're going eastbound.
The one you probably get to drive.
I drive it twice. Right, there, you're turning by Arby's, and you
Yeah.
get there, and you're
Yeah.
waiting for it to turn, and then you go through it.
So there will be like a long line of cars in the left lane and none in the right, and that light will not change.
Okay, all right, I'll get over you guys.
Okay, thank you.
What's the significance of Team Masa?
No, what,
That was one of the team members, wanted the team, called that, it stands for, Make America Safe Again.
Yeah. Okay, we're getting creative here, okay?
You guys get hats?
well, Brad, was that your idea? That's your team.
But they're blue hats.
It was Mark Evans on the team.
Yeah, Mark.
Came in and talked to me, because I got a name for our team.
That's funny.
Especially coming from Mark. Did we ever find out what caused the power outage yesterday?
I never
Was it transmission issues like in Farmington?
They said it was, problems at the substation because it affected, Farmington all the way. That's what they reported on the news.
My kids' schools and pets, tell me your kids right now. I'm like, wow, thanks for the notice.
They did get it up and running faster than they originally said.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
Okay, item number 17, Wally, integrated waste report.
We met last evening in a special board meeting to begin the process for bonding the $20 million for the, mixed waste processing facility. And we voted 14-2 to go ahead and proceed with that project.
Who was the two things?
Tony Lamb and no, he's more than yeah, and I can't remember who the other one was. Oh, no, it wasn't Lamb. He would have voted no, but he wasn't that. He said no.
Yeah, he did.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay, Matt?
All right, mosquitoes are still under control.
Nature?
They're not playing around now.
And Matt?
Your efforts have been great.
Yeah, good job.
Good job, Matt.
Just wanted to have an interesting story. Farmington City came to the mosquito abatement board meeting, requesting that we do like we're doing the subsidence issue, and they created now a CRP. So they didn't collect our taxes or whatever. They used as a study, that's right exactly next to, Station Park. Before Station Park was there, it was, a green belt and that. They said that the school district was receiving about $200 a year off that property in income tax. Because of that, they gave them a CRP or whatever at the time. They paid it back within 7 years, and now the school district receives $1.7 million every year because of that project.
There's a 7-year project, they're now in the red, they're in the green now, that's why.
Yeah, that's right. And they're just wanting to kind of expand that also to the, so we promptly approved that, but it was interesting, we went from making $200 to a great project bringing in 1.7 million.
So how did that impact you guys?
It's the same thing.
Get more money.
Tax increment, yeah.
Yeah.
You went from $2 to.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't, we were the last that they said, oh, yeah, we gotta show up for you guys too, but everyone else had approved the project, but ours won't have such impact over here with Farm Meadows. I thought it was interesting when we approve something like that, and we're willing to put in sidewalks for a project,
He comes back to you.
usually you'll reap the reward.
Yeah, the laws have changed quite a bit since that was established, so.
Yeah, I don't know if it was that different, but there was, you know, more about it than I, but I thought it was interesting when they came and presented that, said, hey, can you not charge us to give you $5 for going to? So, yeah. Planning Commission report again, just publicly, I want to thank the Planning Commission for all they're doing on that. I think they're doing a great job. I think that they are well under the way, but I'm not just taking a little bit more of a look at it.
Okay, thank you. South Davis Metro Fire report, had our board meeting last night. Two things, as it stands right now, Gary is the head of the, budget committee for the fire district, while I serve as chair on the board. And that's what it's meant to do, so whoever city is chairman of the board, whichever mayor, their city administrator becomes the chairman of the financial committee, right? Well, the way it's set up in the bylaws, we elect a new chairman every January, but in the bylaws for the finance committee, they do that in July. And so it makes it kind of awkward, so we changed that in the bylaws to make it coincide with the election of the new chair. And then just by way of report, on Thanksgiving Day over in West, so anyway, when we formed the new district, we were able to bond, get money to update our ambulances, get new equipment, add more, another ambulance and increase our employees on the fire department. On Thanksgiving Day over in West Bountiful, was a 43-year-old man who suffered a severe heart attack. In fact, when they got there, he was dead when they arrived on the scene. They shocked him 3 times, brought him back after shocking him. Because of the equipment on our ambulances, they were able to transmit to the hospital his vital signs, his EKG, have everything that the doctors needed to prep the operation room. When they showed up at the hospital, they took him right from the ambulance into the operating room, did 5 bypass on his heart. He was released 3 days later, up and walking around doing just fine. And so, if anybody ever complains that, we increased the property tax by $5 a month or whatever it was, this is the type of stuff that we were looking at. And this family is very, very happy that we did. Our previous ambulances didn't have that type of equipment on it, and we could have had, it could have been the same result, but, just that expediency and the proper equipment saved that man's life.
Are all of our ambulances updated?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we have that, so. South Davis Recreation, meeting, had that board meeting yesterday as well. It went way too long, no, I'm just kidding. We signed an interlocal agreement with Bountiful City. As I mentioned before, they're building what they call an ice ribbon. They're where the old Stoker Elementary is, with a really nice park. As of right now, the questions have been, are they gonna shut down that road and move into the soccer field? For right now, no, they're just staying on that same property. We signed an agreement that Bountiful, will put all the money into that. It's like $2.2 million now. They've increased the size of it. They'll build all the infrastructure, and the rec district will manage it. It'll be open for free skating next October, and then in the summertime, it'll be open for inline skating, skateboarding, stuff like that. So it's just basically a cement ribbon that they freeze over for ice and so anyway, that was the big thing last night, besides doing our meeting schedule and doing approving our budget for next year, so. As far as the mayor report goes, I think, everything is good there. I don't have anything else. Gary, 23, city administrator report.
I put in there, a month or more ago, we talked about telecommuting, that the council approved an overarching resolution. I'm working now with the departments to get their policies in place. Police department, after reviewing other departments, around the state, and that is a statement position that because of the sensitive material that they have, they need to take care of the the public needs that's not allowed in the department, same with the courts. Public Works, of course, I don't see Sparky or Mark telecommuting from home, so the Public Works.
They gotta know what the word means.
Yeah. So the only department that we're kind of still working on it would be administration, because that may be possible there. So just give you an update where we're at. Also, in my report, I think I mentioned, Monday, prior to Christmas, we always have an employee party. Council's welcome, I think Brian put a flyer there in front of you. So all of you are welcome. That's it.
And I appreciate, are we gonna have control of our city shop by the 11th?
Yeah, we will. Yeah, we will. Well, maybe April, you know.
I appreciate it.
No, our plan is to have it by then.
Okay, sounds good. Motion to go into closed session pursuant to Utah Code 52-4-205 to discuss the character, professional, compliance, or physical or mental health of an individual.